recent months, there has been some concern expressed by individuals about government's plans for the future use of the lands at Holetown, where several public facilities are located, the most prominent of which is the police station. Most interestingly, there have been calls from some for the government to reveal all the facts surrounding this project, in essence, giving the impression that the government has been withholding information. Nothing could be further from the truth. The public record would indicate that through published notices in the newspaper, statements in various public engagements, including Parish Speaks in St. James, as well as from the floor of Parliament, we have been speaking about our plans for the redevelopment of the site of the Civic Centre at Holetown for a considerable period. Mr. Speaker, there has been no attempt to hide any of the facts related to this project. It would be impossible to do so. Indeed, to use an old Bajan saying, we are well aware that you can hide and buy land, but you cannot hide and work it. It is simply not possible to do so. Nonetheless, it has become important to address this matter again in one place, at one time, with all relevant and available information being placed before the public, and more specifically, this Parliament. Mr. Speaker, sir, the public engagement with respect to this matter dates back a full 3 years to August 31st, 2021, when through its executing agency, the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., BTII, published in the Nation newspaper a public advertisement soliciting requests for proposals, RFPs. That ad set out very clearly what government's plans related to the 3.6 acres that now house the Holetown Police Station, the Holetown Library, the Post Office, the Holetown Magistrates Court, as well as offices for the Barbados Revenue Authority and the Barbados Licensing Authority. That public notice made it clear that the intention was to rebuild modern accommodation for these agencies and to make the beachfront land available for tourism development, the creation of jobs, and the earning of foreign exchange. It was recognized that there are very few beachfront sites on the West Coast left in Barbados to be able to expand our tourism footprint and to ensure that we can create opportunities for jobs for as many Bajans as possible. Most critical to the current public debate surrounding this project, Mr. Speaker, is the section of that notice which said, prospective partners need to take note that given the historical significance of the national monument in that location, there is a requirement that it be protected. Yes, this was published, Mr. Speaker, in August 29th, September 1st, and September 3rd, all in 2021. Almost 4 years ago. 4 companies ranked by evaluation criteria met the target date for submission of proposals. ICBL, Apes Hill Golf and Beach Club, Preconco, and Endeavour Capital. 2 companies were shortlisted for negotiations, Apes Hill Golf and Beach Club and ICBL, Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited. Apes Hill Golf and Beach Club proposed the construction of a new condominium complex at 80 million United States dollars. Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited proposed to construct a 100-room hotel at approximately 88 million US dollars. After due consideration, the board of the BTII awarded the bid to the Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited. It should be noted that a hotel development offers greater value added with respect to jobs and foreign exchange, while at the same time triggering other economic activity in the same area. Pursuant to the decision to engage the Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited, a number of meetings have taken place over the last few years to design the Civic Centre at the new site at Trents. The Civic Centre will be built for around 40 million Barbados dollars. Mr. Speaker, the government departments to be accommodated in the new facility made a request for a larger build than what was discussed with the developer. In the circumstance, the government has approved an additional 8 million to meet their requests. The government departments consulted were the Barbados Licensing Authority, the Barbados Revenue Authority, the Barbados Postal Service, the National Library Service, the Magistrates Court, and the Barbados Police Service, and the soon-to-be-established Social Empowerment Agency. In addition, as part of the overall development of the Holetown area, the Ministry of Transport and Works has engaged the services of an engineering company to provide engineering services for flood mitigation in the Trents area. It is therefore fair to say that while there has been no official sign-off on what exactly will be built on the Holetown site, the BTII did accept a proposal for tourism development of a 5-star hotel with a density of around roughly 100 rooms, subject, of course, to the requisite planning permission. While no contracts have been signed, the successful bidder, Insurance Corporation of Barbados, has expended large amounts of funds on the Civic Centre aspect of the project, and we are therefore now stopped from backing away from the overall proposal. Mr. Speaker, please allow me to make one thing very clear. This government understands and appreciates the importance of preserving and conserving our country's heritage, including its built heritage. And contrary to what some would wish others to believe, at Holetown, there's absolutely no intention to create any facility that would diminish the historical significance of the site that recognizes the landing of the olive blossom almost 400 years ago in 1625. I should say, Mr. Speaker, that there's an error on the cenotaph which needs to be corrected and which this government will ensure is corrected. Our history is our history, and we will always respect it, Mr. Speaker. All who want to go and take pictures next to the cenotaph, Bajan, or visitor will be free to do so. It is equally important to make clear at this point that while some of the objections to the project are on the grounds that the buildings are of historical significance, the truth is that these buildings are in fact of recent vintage. The buildings were constructed by Nihal Construction during the early 1990s. At that time, the Right Honourable Owen Arthur, speaking on behalf of the then opposition Barbados Labour Party, expressed the view that it made no sense to put a civic centre and police station back on that site, and that we could keep all the jobs that we had by moving it elsewhere while creating new jobs and opportunities for Bajans. He indicated that as well as this would amplify our ability to earn the necessary foreign exchange that we need to maintain our quality of life as a nation. Mr. Speaker, there's another significant challenge at Holetown that has to be addressed, that of traffic congestion and the need for parking. It is no secret that every morning, Monday to Friday, traffic from the north can back up as far as Mount Standfast, while in the afternoon, that traffic line can snake all the way to Vauxhall at the edge of Sandy Lane. Recognizing the expanded development across Holetown, the government has committed to the construction of a multi-story car park and a review of the traffic arrangements to mitigate any congestion that may be occasioned in Holetown. Mr. Speaker, we want to assure Barbadians who use public transport that they will not negatively be impacted, since the intention is to adjust the routing of buses to accommodate this new location. The new Civic Centre will provide modern and convenient facilities for public officers, more welcoming accommodation for Barbadians and visitors alike doing business, and new parking facilities. This will spur, we believe, new opportunities for creative entrepreneurs. It will be a win-win for all. Mr. Speaker, this brings me to the overall matter of tourism development, economic growth and opportunities for advancement for Barbadians through the provision of quality jobs, both temporary during construction and long-term through the operation of hotels and the related services. As the Prime Minister has stated publicly on several occasions, we have very few opportunities left for beachfront tourism projects if we are to improve our public offerings to the world and to increase our competitiveness as a tourism destination. There will have to be repurposing of existing plant in tourism, given that the low density that was the standard in the past will not be able to guarantee the level of jobs and foreign exchange earnings to secure a better quality of life for our people. We believe that it is possible to develop sites across Bridgetown, Holetown, Speightstown, and Oistins, while remaining committed to preserving our heritage. This government is fully conscious of the need to balance competing interests, and we shall not lose sight of the critical importance of maintaining sustainable, inclusive economic growth. For all its challenges, tourism is responsible directly and indirectly for almost half of the economic activity in Barbados. We learned this the hard way recently during the COVID-19 pandemic. The sector remains an area in which we have excelled for decades, and even as we diversify into new areas of economic activity, it will continue to provide meaningful employment and entrepreneurial activities for the advancement of Barbadians across a variety of areas. This government has been steadfast of its defense of our history as we seek to build a more resilient, stable, and inclusive future for our people in the face of a rapidly evolving external environment globally. Mr. Speaker, this government has always made it a practice of engaging widely across our community. Pursuant to the commitment given by the Honourable Prime Minister on Monday, February 24th, the Prime Minister and I, along with senior representatives of the government, met with representatives of those who raised concerns about the proposed development on Tuesday, March 4th of 2025. This opportunity was taken to update those present with the history of this development and to hear their concerns in greater detail. The government and the BTII respected the views expressed and indicated that we would share with the developer, Insurance Corporation of Barbados Limited, the need to incorporate the aforementioned concerns, which include the preservation of the historical nature of the site and the need to ensure access to the beach with the opportunity of a new recreational facility for all Bajans. We commit to continuing the discussions with those who have expressed concerns and to facilitating communication between them and the developer so as to ensure that the proposed development will be achieved by being thoughtful and creative. The public should be aware that the final designs for the proposed hotel have still to be submitted to the Planning and Development Department and will be subject to the normal consultative process that is required by the laws of this land. Mr. Speaker, I sincerely hope that this statement now clarifies a number of the issues raised. With that, I'm obliged.
Speaker, I'd like to recommend first readings of bills.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would have indicated earlier the first reading of the Integrated Coastal Zone Management and Marine Bill 2025. I am drawing to your attention that the corrected name of the bill is actually the Integrated Coastal and Marine Management Bill 2025. And I therefore beg to move the first reading of that bill.
No problem. You want? Or business? No. The question is that the aforementioned bill be ready the first time. All those who are members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Order number 13, sir. In the name of the Ministry, the Honourable Minister of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs, to move the second reading of the Social Empowerment Agency Bill 2025.
Honourable Member St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to begin by thanking my staff in the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs for putting us in a position, sir, where over the course of the last 2 years or so, we have been able to bring the most transformative legislation on the social sector to this Parliament. I want to thank those who went before me, as I always do. I want to thank my immediate predecessor, the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, who would have done a lot of work to put us in a position to be here. But I also want to thank those who went even before the Honourable Member for St. Thomas. Those who on the other side would have done work toward an amalgamation of social services. Those who on our side in the early 90s, particularly the Honourable Member now for St. Michael East and the former member for St. Michael Southeast, who would have done a lot of work, sir, in the mid to late 1990s on the amalgamation. You would also accept, sir, that after 2008, the government that formed the day created a Ministry of Family with an idea as well to be better able to coordinate social services and to be able to offer a holistic, comprehensive, one-stop shop to persons who are in need. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have tried on many occasions. I've read several reports, either in my capacity now as minister or my previous capacities as manager of the Child Care Board or as the director of social policy and planning when I was in the Ministry of Social Transformation and the Ministry of Social Care. But this, Mr. Speaker, sir, is certainly as far as anyone has gone, even though we've all agreed in principle that this is the direction in which we should go. I am pleased to be the minister, sir, who is laying this bill, but I recognize, sir, that I do so with the support of a full cabinet and all of my parliamentary colleagues as we do what I think is perhaps the most important work that can be done on behalf of Barbados. I also want to take this opportunity, sir, to thank the Honourable Prime Minister of Barbados, who I must tell you, sir, continues to give me a certain amount of freedom in this space to do the things that I think are necessary to move our social agenda forward. And not only have I been given freedom to do these things by the Honourable Prime Minister, that over the last 3 years or so, we were also given the most funds ever allocated to a social ministry in the history of this country to be able to offer goodness on behalf of the people of Barbados. So, Mr. Speaker, with that being said, and set in the context of what I think, sir, is something that I think we all agree. The Honourable Member for Christchurch South, when we spoke on the Disabilities Bill in which we introduced formally the Social Empowerment Agency, offered tremendous support as well for the Social Empowerment Agency. I do not think this is a matter on which you will find much political divide in Barbados, sir. I must also tell you, sir, that we took our time in getting here. And we did not seek to rush this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it was too important. And that at the end of the day, the success of this work was not in us being able to say we have an amalgamated entity, but that we had created something that would work on behalf of the most vulnerable people in this country. That meant, therefore, that we spent time in many meetings, some of which I may go through today. It meant, sir, that we had a number of sessions where we were just, for want of a better phrase, hanging out, getting the different entities to know each other as we tried to merge 4 entities into one, recognizing that you do so bringing various cultures together. If we want it to work, sir, we had to appreciate and honor the cultures that existed in the various organizations. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would have said that we have gone through this exercise for a number of years. There were many iterations of this bill. I want to thank the Chief Parliamentary Counsel and her office, sir, for what I can only describe as exemplary work, a total commitment, sir. We were able, in the course of the last few years, to bring to this Parliament a child protection bill, now a Child Protection Act, that offers the most protection for children, not only in Barbados, but anywhere in the Caribbean. We were able to bring to this Parliament, not too long ago, a Rights of Persons with Disabilities bill that offers the most protection and chance for empowerment for persons with disabilities. Sir, it is a crying shame that up until that time, there was no specific legislation for persons with disabilities. I have, sir, in my possession, and we recently shared it with the Law Reform Commission, with whom we have worked on all of our major pieces of legislation. For a final set of consultations, we have the Rights of Elderly Persons bill. That bill, sir, will be the last piece of the 4 pieces of important legislation that we committed to the people of Barbados. It would be the Child Protection, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, this Social Empowerment Agency bill, and of course, the Rights of the Elderly Persons Bill 4. We promised 4, sir, we're delivering all 4. Mr. Speaker, sir, like the rights of persons with disabilities, sir, there's no specific legislation on the elderly either. And we relied at the National Assistance Board, primarily on the National Assistance Act 1969, to help us do what we needed to do in that space. But the truth is, sir, a lot of the work that is being done by the National Assistance Board, Mr. Speaker, sir, is work that evolved over time that is not captured in legislation. The work that the National Assistance Board must now do is also not captured in legislation. Nonetheless, sir, despite the fact that in cases of disabilities we had no legislation, in cases of children we had old legislation, and in cases of the elderly, again, we had no legislation, I want to commend the staff, sir, of these agencies, including the Welfare Department, sir, for the amount of work that they would have done on behalf of Barbados in perhaps the most difficult times over the last few years. I commend them, sir, for all of their effort. I particularly commend the staff because people do not appreciate, but that during the most horrible times of COVID, the staff of the Ministry of People Empowerment never missed a day, and I thank them for the work that they would have done on behalf of the people of this country. So with that framework, sir, I present to you what I think is a very transformative piece of legislation. The Social Empowerment Agency, sir, as it's properly titled, or we call it C, the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central and the Minister of Blue Economy has told me that C reminds him of the ocean, the waves and the motion of the ocean. We agree that it is a sea of opportunity and a sea of change that will come to the people of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Minister of Environment. We agree that this is necessary. We think, sir, that it was meant to bring hope. For most of this conversation, we talked about family services. In fact, the 2008 to 2018 government at some point had a ministry responsible for family. And while we call it the Ministry of Family Services, and while that is the process and the work of the ministry, the outcome must be empowerment, must be social empowerment. Family services may be the process. The outcome must be empowerment. And hence we named the ministry, the department, the Social Empowerment Agency, because we want to focus on empowerment. We want to focus on transformation. We want to focus on taking persons, sir, to that other level. And I believe, sir, that what is before this House, the way that it is now constituted, would allow us to do so properly, sir. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, why do we need to do this? I would not want for the public to assume or to believe that we are just dabbling for dabbling's sake, or that we are just fiddling with something that works, sir. Like yourself, sir, I have been around the social services for a long time, sir. I like to remind Barbados that you were the manager at the child, you were a social worker before, then the manager of administration at the Child Care Board, and that I came immediately after you vacated the post of manager of administration of the Child Care Board, sir, with a thorough knowledge of social services. And in fact, a lot of the work that we found at the Child Care Board, a lot of the legislation that we found, a lot of the contracts were things that you left. And that I have no doubt, sir, that you, as much as any other member, or more so than any member in this room, fully appreciate why it is that we need to do this in the social services and the social sector space. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, what is the reality facing social services? For those of us who have constituents, which therefore is all of us, who at some point in time must interface with the social services sector, we know that their experience is not always a pleasant one. And we know that, sir, and I'm not talking now about interactions between the staff and the clients. That is going to happen at some point in time. Our duty is to minimize it. But I am talking about the systemic and systematic flaws that exist within the social services sector. I have had the view for a long time, sir, that we need really to, the Prime Minister says, deconstruct and reconstruct. But we really need, sir, to look at the things that we do in the public sector. We will honor and keep the things that work, but we must really now be prepared to let go of the things that do not work. There's some things in our DNA, sir, that will benefit us going forward, but there's some things in our DNA, sir, that as a process of adaptation that allows species to extend their life over time, there are things they have to give up. Many of us, sir, are so committed to the existing structure that we cannot see the necessity for a change, sir. But all of us who have constituents know, and all of Barbados who's listening to me would know, that there are many cases where things that are done before the social service sector just do not make sense. Mr. Speaker, sir, you would have a client, one person, who if that person wants services from the Child Care Board, they have to present themselves to the Child Care Board, one person. Same person, they want support from the Welfare Department, they must present themselves to the Welfare Department. Same person, two agencies. That person wants assistance if the person is a person with a disability or has a child or relative with a disability, to the National Disabilities Unit. One person, three agencies. Same person. You have a person, sir, who might be aged or who would have an elderly relative, must also present themselves to the National Assistance Board. One person, four entities. We then added, during the course of the estimates, exercises, and consultation, we added the work of the resilience unit that we just created. Because if you have an emergency, if you have a fire or after a hurricane, you had to then often find yourself without support. And let me say, Mr. Speaker, sir, when it comes to emergency response, there is no government, none. When it comes to emergency response, in terms of what the social services sector now provides, there is no government that I can think of on record that has done or is doing as much as this government is to help people survive the intensity and the horrors of a shock after an emergency. I commend the government, I commend the officers in the four entities and the resilience unit of which I just spoke, sir. So you could have a case where one person must interact with 5 entities. One person. In our vision, sir, as you will see as I go through this exercise, in our vision, you would have a case where that one person in their community, because as it stands now, for the most part, you have to go to town or to a lot of main offices, except for the Welfare Department, for the most part. You will now be able to go in your community and receive these services. One person, one agency. getting all of these services at one time. It is transformational, sir. And because it is transformational, sir, we knew that it would take time for our staff to appreciate it. We obviously know that it's going to take time for Barbadians to properly understand it. But we do know that the benefits are such that it will redound to all Barbadians, sir. The other issue, sir, that I felt was necessary for us to address was just the length of time that it takes to get services. It just takes too long, Mr. Speaker, sir. And oftentimes it is the same person coming back at Christmas for support, coming back to school for support. These things that should not, in my mind, take as long as they do, sir, taking too long. We want to reduce the time between a person's application and the time that a person is able to receive the support that they require, sir. The honourable member for St. Michael West Central had asked me to describe the process now of coming for services. We do have an online application at the Welfare Department. I think that's the only one. We now must be able to have an online application for all of the social services so that people can feel they can stay where they are, sir, and apply. There used to be a time when the thought of the internet and computers scared people. But the mobile phones, the internet on the phones have changed all of that. People who would never have seen the internet have the internet. They've learned to use it on their cell phone, sir, and should be able to apply where they are on their phone for goods and services from the government, sir. We've created a computer system, an integrated system called Pulse that would allow us just to do that. With Pulse, sir, you'll be able to apply once it is finally completed. I know we've done most of the uploading and onboarding. You will be able to apply for your services online and follow where you are in that application online. One place, even from your own home, sir, to see where you stand, to know if you got through or did not get through, as they say, sir, immediately. Because at the end of the day, there were two questions that I felt were necessary to be asked and answered. One was, what is it that we are offering the public, sir? And we have a list of things that we are offering the public in relation to the goods and services, sir. A lot of it is settled in the legislation, the new pieces of legislation in child care, disabilities, and elderly. But the other question, sir, and the more important question that has to be asked and answered is, what is it that the clients want? That is the question. How are we going to give them what it is that they want? What are we going to do to make the lives of these persons easier? That is the question, essentially. What is it that the clients want? And our response should tell us how we respond, what we create. We prioritize people. People as the primary concern of the amalgamation. It has to be so. It has to be so, sir. That people are the primary concern of the amalgamation. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is for those of us who had either the opportunity or the burden of having to study some of the Greek, sir, particularly people who did international relations, sir, there is a thought by a man called Thucydides. My PS would have heard me speak of it. I speak of it a lot. And this million dialogue is a very popular conversation in international relations. It is a conversation between, it is like, I think 404 BC, but it's a conversation between a country called Milos and Athens. And the Athenians are at the door, basically, of Milos. Milos is, there's a war going on. We're neutral. We want nothing to do with that war. I deserve the right to be neutral. I don't want to get myself involved in this. That's between you and them. But the Athenians are saying, nah, you either come on my side or you against me. Either you do exactly what I asked you to do, or you are against me. And if you do not surrender when we take over, we will kill all your men, rape and imprison your women and children. Of course, Milos believes this is not going to happen. They start to plead a case, sir, of right. This is not right. And those from Athens say, right? Right is only a question for those who are equal in power. Right is only a question for those who are equal in power. Therefore, you cannot tell me about right. As long as I have the power, You have no conversation telling me about what is right and what is wrong. Then they plead a further case on this phrase that most of us know: the strong will do what they will. They say, the strong will do what they will, and the weak will suffer what they must, sir. The strong will do what they will, and the weak will suffer what they must. It is a thought pattern, sir, though this is rooted in international relations, sir. It is a thought pattern that I think cripples most of us and the way we think. That those of us who find ourselves in position of power feel that we have the right to do what we will, and others will suffer what they must. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is wrong. Wrong, wrong. And the worst manifestation of it would be in the social services sector, where people who come to the social services are already wounded and in need of support. Mr. Speaker, I've made it very clear to the staff, and I'm thankful, sir, that we are all on the same page in the ministry, but I've made it very clear that at the end of the day, if people do not feel that this agency has made a difference, it doesn't matter what services we offer, it doesn't matter what legislation we have passed, it doesn't matter how many degrees and master's degrees the staff may have. If the people do not feel that this agency makes a difference in their lives, then we have failed the people. And therefore, sir, we spent a significant amount of time on training, on understanding the principle, sir, because I believe that this is really our last shot, our last best shot to get this right, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I speak on behalf of many, many people in this country who are in need of support, sir. We spent time in our meetings. You would hear us having conversations, sir. I involved myself during the meetings sometimes in all kinds of conversations. When they spoke to me, I listened, because it is in the details that you get rid of the devil. We, sir, we're having conversations on how you handle people's files and who should be handling them. How you respond to people, sir. If you're dealing with an elderly person, sir, when they accuse you of something, or if they accuse you of cheating or stealing, sir, as long as you're innocent, because if you're not innocent, that is it. But if, as they may from time to time accuse you, how you respond. These are the things that are going to matter. If someone calls you with a concern, how do you respond? How do we address the concerns in this bill, sir? And as I get to the legislation, you will see, sir, that we've addressed the concerns. There is, in participatory action research, a man with whom I'm familiar called Robert Chambers. Now, Chambers' work, sir, is special for people who practice participatory research. Chambers argues, as the director of the Child Care Board now would know, having been herself, like myself, certified as a trainer of trainers in action research. But Chambers argues that essentially in life you have uppers and lowers. Those who control the means are the uppers, and those who don't are the lowers. If you're in a community doing community work, you walk in as a social worker or whatever, for the time being you may be an upper. Those who have to be worked on are lowers. But what he argues is that essentially these are roles, these are role identities. Tomorrow you may be the lower. If you go to the doctor as a social worker, no one cares that you're a senior social worker. You on a doctor's operating table, you better believe it, your hands in the life of that man. You become the lower. If you go to the gas station and the gas station attendant determines that he or she doesn't want to help you in that relationship, you're the lower too. But the point is that you have to reduce the gap between those who consider themselves uppers and those who consider themselves lowers. And he goes on to argue that you have to pass the stick, he says, which means that because a lot of this work was done in rural communities where there was no pen and paper, they would work it out on the ground. They would draw diagrams in the mud and in the dirt using a stick. And he says, you know, that the person is empowered when you've passed the stick over and that person controls the stick and is able to draw for you the future that they see for themselves. And that is where we have to go, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have to pass over the stick. The idea that we hold on to these things. When I was director of the Constituency Council, it grieved me. The torture that I had to go through to get some persons to give community groups the keys to the buildings. It grieved me. Many meetings, for every single reason I put forward why people needed to have the keys, there was a reason why they couldn't have the keys. But community groups and community buildings aren't there for style. Mr. Speaker, sir, I see the Honourable Member for St. John in his vision, creating these center management committees that allows us to do just that. Let people have access to the things that they should control, reduce that gap, Mr. Speaker, sir. And so I'm taking great pains to explain this, sir, because if we don't understand this principle in the social services sector, we do not understand anything at all. That ideally, the clients that we interact with are the most important persons in the equation. If there are no clients, there's no need for staff. There's no need for a minister. There's no need for a director. And the fact that we exist, sir, and I know some people don't want to hear it, but we exist to serve them. The Ministry of People Empowerment exists to serve the most vulnerable. If there wasn't a set of people called the vulnerable, there would be no need for this ministry. We exist to serve them. And over time, because of that power dynamic, we may think that we are uppers and treat people as lowers. But everybody needs to be treated, sir, with a great degree of dignity, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, this amalgamation has been on the cards for a long time. There was a Joseph report in 1997. There was some other reports, some other papers before that, but this was perhaps the most seminal work at the time. In 1997, that spoke to the rationalization of social services. An idea, sir, that if you look at what we're doing now, some of the principles, not everything, but some of the principles of that guiding document are embedded in this social empowerment agency. There were a number of papers between then and now. When the other side was the government, sir, between 2008 and 18, there were a few papers. To be truthful, sir, as they attempted to do a Department of Family, but nothing major, but there were a couple papers. How do we create a ministry responsible for family? What should that ministry look like, Mr. Speaker, sir? So that in principle, for years, we have all agreed that we need to have this agency, Mr. Speaker, sir. And a number of papers, sir, we took to Cabinet, and various people took to Cabinet, papers on Ministry of Family, Department of Children and Family Services, sir, all various iterations of the same thing. Now, what are we doing here today, Mr. Speaker, sir? We are amalgamating 4 major entities and merging the Resilience Unit. The Welfare Department, sir, as I said, is guided by the 1969 National Assistance Act for the most part. At present, the client roll for the Welfare Department is about 5,678. Those are the persons, sir, who would be on the roll consistently, but there are other people, sir, who come forward for other services over time. 5,678. The National Disabilities Unit, sir, they only have 19 people on staff, sir. 2 social workers, I think. 2 or 3 if you add the senior staff members. 2 social workers who actually work on the ground. They have over 2,000 clients registered at the National Disabilities Unit, Mr. Speaker. So we have done such a disservice to the persons with disabilities in this country, sir. I am so pleased to see that we have taken time, sir, to right these wrongs. And that could only be wrongs, and I've apologized publicly before, and I do it again. I am so sorry on behalf of this government, and on behalf of all governments, for the way that persons with disabilities have been treated in this country and to what they had been reduced to in this country. But if you look at what this government is doing, we are doing a lot of things to right that wrong, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Child Care Board. When I brought the Child Protection Bill, I told the country that some of the legislation that we are being guided by was from 1904. Some in the 1920s, Mr. Speaker, sir. It would not be hard to receive or to believe that legislation written 120 years ago, when many of us of color, sir, were barely considered human, could be of any relevance to us today. We brought a child protection bill, sir, that, again, I read through it yesterday while we were in Cabinet, and the transformation that is alive in that bill once we proclaim it. And it is my intention, sir, to proclaim the Child Protection Bill, the Social Empowerment Agency Bill, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Bill for April 1st. But when these things are proclaimed collectively, it will be the most protection for vulnerable people in Barbados. Permit me to say, sir, it will be the most protection for poor people in this country, sir. We proclaim them on April 1st. That is the intention, Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the NAB. The National Assistance Board, again guided by the National Assistance Act, sir, with 144 home care workers, dealing with 1,357 clients. These are clients that are on register. It is not the amount of elderly persons that are now coming forward. I am sure that all of us in this space, sir, have persons who are contacting us on a daily basis, asking us for either a geriatric placing, they're asking for home help, or they're asking for companionship, or some other issue pertaining to persons who are elderly, and that is to be expected. We have already said that Barbados is an away from being a super age society. When 20% of your population is over 65, then you know that you are hanging very close to being a super age society, which is 21%. And that will have implications for this country, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have said it before, I will repeat it again. The one thing that I do not think Barbados is prepared for is the elderly or the aging transition and consequential impacts of that transition on this country. It's going to affect our workforce. It is going to affect the cost of caring, sir, for persons who are elderly, sir. But it also presents amazing opportunities if we understand the silver economy and what potentially that means. The truth is that older persons sometimes have more assets than younger persons. We have more assets in our 50s than we do in our 20s, some of us. Mr. Speaker, sir. So it presents, as much as it presents challenge, it presents opportunity. Therefore, the reason why it is that we must change the way we think about the social space. We have tremendous opportunity before us, Mr. Speaker, sir. Tremendous opportunity. I think, sir, that our mindset is inhibiting us from benefiting from the potential that persons with disabilities, the elderly, those who are considered, sir, the poor in our country, sir, would be able to present to this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, during the Child Protection Bill, too, there was a conversation about children and children not having a voice. But I dare any member in this place, this august chamber, to think of themselves at 14 years old and tell me you did not have an opinion on your own life. Think of yourself at 16 years old and tell me you did not have an opinion on your own life. The idea that we think a child, because the law is clear, you know, it is related to the age and a person's capacity to think. So if it is that you have the cognitive ability to be heard, why would we not let you be heard? And we protect that right for children, sir, in that bill, sir. And I believe when we do this, we give ourselves the benefit of youthful thought. Particularly, sir, when those of us in this room are no longer as young as we used to be, Mr. Speaker, sir. You all remember for St. James South is always teasing me. I see she's looking at me now. But I accept that I'm no longer as youthful as as young as I used to be, sir. Though I pretend to be as youthful. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm just saying, if you pull all these voices together, if we are able to do this right, Mr. Speaker, sir, the transformation that is before this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have work to do. We are not done. We have work to do as it relates to HIV, the Wellbeing and HIV Commission. We have work to do as it relates to gender as well, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have work to do on a number of things. But these four major pieces of legislation form the basis of the legislative amendments and adjustments that we needed to do to move Barbados forward, Mr. Speaker, sir. So what were the objectives of the new organization, sir? We determined, sir, that we wanted to have everything in one space, one organization, one space, to reduce the idea of, sir, people having the discomfort of having to go various places to benefit from social services. But also, sir, because, you know, there was a concept for those of us who are in this space that we call agency shopping, where a person may go to 4 or 5 different agencies because they didn't talk to each other, and get support from 4 or 5 agencies. We call it agency shopping. It prevents agency shopping. So that what that does, sir, is that it allows the limited resources that will always be the reality of any government. It allows those limited resources to go to the people who need those resources the most. We felt that, sir, there should be one place where people can come and get the support, sir. We also felt, sir, in terms of the actual physical locations, that we needed to locate these, what we now call care centers, in various communities, sir. We've identified some. I won't go through them today, but we've identified some where they're going to be that would allow people to be able to stand where they are, for example, and go in. Nobody knows why you're there. Nobody knows, because you could walk into this agency now for almost anything. It is not like you're walking into welfare where people think that you're going to ask for something. And Barbadians, as much as they love Barbadians, we really need to stop this. Because today might be for somebody else, and tomorrow might be for you. We just do not know, Mr. Speaker, sir. And this idea that we continue to judge people because of their economic circumstances, sir, is nonsense. And this is not to forgive people who are poor too. Because, sir, growing up as a boy in the Pine, sir, even amongst us, there were some who were judged for being poorer than the others, though all of us were poor. So if you were able to afford a pair of Nikes or something, or if your parents, at that time Margarita was popular, you flew out to Margarita and brought you back a fancy pair of slippers, you know, all of a sudden you're better off than somebody else. But this is a nonsense. And it is one of those things that we have inherited, regrettably, from our slave past that we continue to perpetuate. But we have to stop it, sir. There is no harm if a person has fallen on hard times to go and get help. There is no shame, Mr. Speaker, sir, if a person is dealing with so much stress that they need to go and get some kind of therapy or mental support, sir. This idea, again, that if somebody has issues in relation to the stress that they're under, or if they're depressed, or if they even have, sir, a breakdown, I don't think that's the proper term, but if they have reason, sir, to seek help, we judge them too. And I compare my experience in this country, in this government, to the experience when I worked for the Canadians. And people were given mental health breaks and mental health days. You were to say to a Canadian employer today, oh my God, today I feel so stressed. There is a whole protocol to support you. Not here. If you say, I feel like I'm having a breakdown, people, instead of being curious about your reality and leaning in to help you, people scorn you and they lean back, sir. It has to change. Because all of us are dealing with something. Every single human being is walking wounded. But it seems to me, sir, that persons who have to present to the social services sector are saved for a special kind of discrimination, a special kind of stigma. And it really has to change, Mr. Speaker, sir. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we felt, as I mentioned in Pulse, that we could implement a case kind of support system, a management system, sir, that allows us to pull up people's data in these centers, very much protected, sir. Different levels based on your level of seniority in the department, sir. But being able to give people things at those centers, there is no reason, Mr. Speaker, sir, why a voucher request needs to not be done on the spot. If a person comes, unless the person is abusing the system, you see the person came yesterday and they came today and they come tomorrow, well then, you know, the person has deeper issues and needs support. And that is not a reason again to scorn, but we have to investigate and to see why it is that that person is coming so often. But unless the person is trying to like fleece the system, sir, a voucher request cannot take 24 hours. And surely it cannot take a week or 2 weeks or a month. Mr. Speaker, sir, if I come to you hungry at 11 o'clock, Mr. Speaker, sir, you expect to give me the support in 2 weeks? Because hunger feels in Barbados the same way it feels in the way the Western world tries to depict Africa. It feels the same. When you're hungry, those of us who've known hunger know what it feels like. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is no reason that these things should take so long. And unless it is a question of resources, sir, there is no reason why most of the things we do should take so long. And if it is, sir, then we communicate with the people. If it is that we're doing further investigation, let people know. Because it is the fear of the unknown, sir, that has caused most of us, sir, to be stressed. If you are waiting for the results of some health test or some exam, especially if you're hearing other people fail, you just become so stressed, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I think communication has to be the hallmark of this new social empowerment agency. People have to feel that we care about them because we have to care about them, Mr. Speaker, sir. I've told you the experience of my own mother. Being treated like a leftover, having had to go for services, somebody saying, but look, you got a color TV in your house. Look, you got a VCR. That's back in the days of VCRs. Look, you got a VCR. You can't want support, but a lady who got laid off as a conductress without employment for 4 years, how you expect somebody to be living? And you come and you judge the house. Oh, you got an antenna, so you must have got an MCTV back in the day. It is a nonsense, sir. We have to be sensitive and we have to be compassionate about people's struggles. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have said to the staff, this is not about degrees. I'm not saying don't get you the qualifications because qualifications are essential, they help. This is not about degrees. This is not about even your experience. It's not even about being on the job for 20 years. This is on this day to day, how am I best able to offer myself to help somebody else? And if it is that you can honestly introspect and reflect and say to yourself, I cannot do this, then as a ministry and as an agency, we have to offer the staff the support to best position them so to do, because the staff is important. And if it is that we cannot offer them that level of support, or if they want to go on to something else, we allow them to do so, sir. But we are all conduits. We are all conduits, sir, for something else, sir. Myself didn't know how I feel. I'm sure the permanent secretary probably tired of hearing me talking about it, sir. But people first. And I've said to them, sir, I know that this ministry is hard work, but it is also heart work. And if your heart is not in it, let somebody else do the work. And that we, sir, we committed to not letting go anybody during this exercise, so that if you don't want to do it, sir, let somebody else do it, Mr. Speaker, sir. I've asked the staff, I hope that most of them, sir, when we make the final offer, sir, would come over so that we can offer the best services to people, sir, who need those services, sir. Sir, what is the new organizational structure? The ministry, sir, of people empowerment, when we conceptualize this, because you have to realize, sir, that even with the best intentions and the best support, no one ministry has all the skills. And sometimes you need to speak to people, sir, who have better skills in a particular area. We went to the Sagicor K-Phil School of Business and Management, sir, to help us with the structure. While we, of course, were working with the public service, properly named, to be able also to develop the structure, and with the staff, and with the unions, Mr. Speaker, sir. And we developed a structure, sir. I would not try to explain it today because most people may not get it in the limited time that I have, but suffice it to say that we have kept most of the agencies. For example, the Child Protection Bill requires that you have people who are specifically allocated to children. The National Assistance Board, sir, with their expertise in dealing with the elderly, sir. The rights of persons with the rights of elderly persons bill, sir, requires that we do specific things, and so on and so forth. The same with disabilities, sir. But in a community, when you walk in, a person must feel that the officer with whom they are interacting can give them advice on all of those things. So that for the first few months and years, I think, it will be a learning experience also for the staff. The children, the persons from Child Care Board who would have, tremendous experience in dealing with children, working with those who have experience in dealing with disabilities. Both of them learning, sir. The opportunity to learn, sir, I believe will probably be the most exciting part of this experience, Mr. Speaker, sir. And we created originally, sir, four directorates. We have, sir, a directorate responsible for social care delivery and social care support, sir. We have one responsible for the shared services, sir, which would be like our administrative services. So that, because it's not such a large organization, we have so many different players involved in this organization. So we have one responsible for shared services, Mr. Speaker, sir. The admin stuff, the legal work, and so on and so forth, thanks. The other one we have, sir, is one responsible for transformation and empowerment. We dwindle them down to 3. For transformation and empowerment, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to spend a little bit of time. There used to be in the ministry, back in the day, what we call welfare to work. Welfare to work was where a person came into contact with the welfare department, sir, and at the end of their experience with welfare, normally, that person would be recommended for a job or given training or something. The challenge, it was a brilliant idea. It was a good idea. The challenge with it, however, is that it was not integrated, in my opinion, from the very beginning. It was not integrated from the very beginning. It was also not properly monitored and evaluated, sir. And it was not a benefit that was experienced by all who came into contact with the social services sector. Transformation cannot be an adjunct. Transformation and empowerment in this agency cannot be a last resort. It has to be built in from the start. So that we created a transformation component, sir. With persons hired there who would have the ability to offer proper training, sir, with the right counseling, sir, to be able to give people a chance at work, sir. I was saying to PM that this is a second chance. She said to me, Minister, in many cases, it is a first chance, because many people feel that they're getting this opportunity for the first time. So some people a second chance, and for some it's a first chance, sir. But that is important, Mr. Speaker, sir. The idea of one, social care delivery, which is where we would be in the community, sir, and dealing with the people on the ground, and so on. The social care support, sir, because they're going to be complicated issues. Don't get me wrong. If you have very complicated issues in the community, I don't expect those to be solved in the small centers that we're going to occupy. There's going to be a reason to kick some of these bigger issues upstairs. And there you're going to have those people separated, sir. Some who are only doing childcare, some who are only doing elderly, and some who are only doing disabilities and some on welfare. So that you separate them at that level, sir. But I think the transformation component is going to make all of the difference, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, when people walk away from this ministry, when people walk away from this department, they have to feel that they had a good experience, Mr. Speaker, sir. And to me, attitude is more important now than aptitude. Not that aptitude is not important, but we need to make sure that people have the right attitude. You know, people say that if people may not remember what you say, they may not remember what you did, but people always remember how you made them feel. You ask your constituents, some will say, I don't want to go back there. They don't remember who they spoke to. They don't remember what the person said, but they know they don't want to go back to some of these agencies. They know, because they didn't feel good about the experience, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that is something that we have to be able to change, Mr. Speaker, sir. I don't want to go through where we are originally going to be setting up these offices, only because I know my colleagues are going to be asking me about their specific places. But we have them listed, Mr. Speaker, sir. In shared services, sir, we're going to be looking at HR, and HR is going to be such an important component of this ministry. The combined staff of this ministry is significant. Of this department, sorry, is significant. You need proper HR practices, proper HR principles. I had a conversation recently, sir, with someone who said to me that persons fear that this is a political thing, and I gave them the assurance that it is not, that this has been a conversation that has started and survived beyond government, that what we are offering here is not a political thing at all, but that they want the people who are best suited to be able to do it. They fear that if a person took a job here or governments to change, that they could lose their jobs. And I said, no, once a person is appointed to a position at a board, as I have been at the child care board, then that person is offered the same services and same protections, and we wrote it into the legislation, sir, so that no political interference could cause a person to lose their job. Mr. Speaker, so you could be fired. Of course you could be fired, but it would have to be for something indecent or something. It would have to be for a cause. Thank you, Honourable Member. It would have to be for cause. So I don't want people to think that nobody can be fired either, because that's also a view in the public service. Nobody can lose their jobs. But it would have to be for cause. You don't want to come to work, you don't work, you treat somebody bad, sir. I had a conversation with one person who, at a big meeting, said to me that dealing with the elderly person, somebody hit them, and had the bravery at the meeting to say to me, well, you know, I hit them back. Error. We can't have that, sir. And if you can say it to me at a meeting, then I tell him, if you are so callous, or so believe you are so covered, that if an elderly person who's dealing with an issue hits you, you want to hit them back. Mr. Speaker, sir. So there are things that we understand, sir, because you have to appreciate if you're dealing with the elderly, these are things that are going to happen. Last night I was told, as I digress momentarily, of a person who is working in one of these private homes for the elderly. And I'm thankful that the new legislation that we will bring to this House, hopefully by the end of this month, but surely by in April, allows us to monitor these private homes a little bit better. Of a person, sir, of a particular elder care facility, and I will give the information to the director of the National Assistance Board and to the chief medical officer. And that because they don't want their sheet soil, they plug the, what's the proper phrase? They plug the elderly persons so that that person wouldn't defecate on the sheets. And that the person stays that way for a while so as to protect and not soil their garments, sir. That came to me, sir. And I say this, sir, because, you know, people feel because you can't see them, somebody's always watching you. The new legislation would allow us in these cases, sir, when we pass the Elderly Protection Bill, to go in and to do our own investigation. Currently, the legislation does not allow it. But the chief medical officer can go in, sir. And I don't need to tell you that if you plug a human being that they're going, I don't have to be a doctor to know that there are going to be all kinds of consequences for that person. It is wrong, Mr. Speaker, sir. And dare you speak out at that agency, you find yourself in trouble. Anyway, a word to the wise is enough. But I do know that somebody from either the NAB or the Ministry of Health must pay a visit to that place. And if it is not true, well, fine. But if it is true, Mr. Speaker, sir, those persons have to be dealt with, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that is why we bring legislation. That is why I think it is important that we strengthen the agencies responsible for doing that work, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I want to take you through some of the processes that we did before I go through the legislation. It is obvious, sir, that we are bringing a tremendous change.
Honourable, don't wish to interrupt you, sir, but two things. First of all, I want to welcome the Speaker from the House of Commons from Canada, Speaker Fergus, and representatives from the Canadian High Commission. Secondly, I have a meeting now, so I will give it to my deputy.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South, please continue your presentation.
Thank you. Let me welcome you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I was at the point where I was explaining to Barbados the process, sir, ma'am. We spent a lot of time, as I said, bringing together different cultures. We hired a change management specialist in the ministry to help us with that, because we know we don't have all the skills. And I want to commend the change management specialist. I don't know if I should do so by name, but Miss Bridget Lewis, Madam, permit me to say, for the work that she would have done in helping us, ma'am, bring this together. It was a lot of work. And managing change is never easy for anyone, Madam Deputy Speaker. We did a lot of work trying to understand the different flows, the branding. There were things that we involved the staff in, Madam Deputy Speaker, that most people would not have involved the staff in. On every possible thing that was of relevance, we involved the staff, Madam Deputy Speaker, to make sure that not only did they feel a part of it, but that they owned it at the end of the day, Madam Deputy Speaker, and that we know that change that sustains itself over time requires the buy-in of all who are involved, Madam Deputy Speaker. We also did a lot of training around some of the principles that I've espoused. We did training on a number of other things. We looked at ethics and various things, Madam Deputy Speaker. And we spent a lot of time as well engaging in fun activities to bring the staff together. Madam Deputy Speaker, we worked with various entities, various agencies. I feel that we've done all that we can do in relation to making this change process as easy on the staff as is possible, Madam Deputy Speaker. So let me please take you quickly through the bill. Madam Deputy Speaker, what does the bill say in summary? This bill makes provisions for the establishment and the amalgamation of 4 legacy agencies. As I said, the Child Care Board, the Welfare Department, the National Assistance Board, and the National Disabilities Unit. And we've also brought on the services of the Resilience Unit. It establishes appeals committees, ma'am, to allow persons who have grievances to have a voice. And we've been very clear all through this exercise. People need to have a right to come in and express a grievance. And a lot of what we do in the public sector, or back in the day, I don't think we do it as much, you know, you would have a box and you could, if you have a problem, write it and drop it in the box. And that box is never cleared, or if it is cleared, nobody gets back to you. But we've built it into the system. The executive director, when she investigates things, has 14 days, which she needs, or he needs to respond to the person, Madam Deputy Speaker. This legislation has a total of 45 sections, a first schedule, a second, third, and fourth schedule, Madam Deputy Speaker. The first schedule, because I won't do it at the end, has the special enactments. The second schedule, it looks at the constitution of the SEA. And the third schedule speaks to the National Advisory Committee, which is a committee that basically advises the minister because, you know, there's not always going to be a case. I had the good fortune and privilege of being the minister responsible and a person in this space for a long time, but it won't always be the case. And even for somebody who's been in this space, you need to take advice from somebody else or some bodies else. The fourth schedule looks at the consequential amendments as we go forward, Madam Deputy Speaker. And as I said, we do intend to proclaim this legislation for April 1st. Note that the bill will repeal the National Assistance Act, under which the National Assistance Board functions. Also, it guides the Welfare Department, and I believe to a certain extent, even the NDU. It would also, ma'am, the Child Care Board will be repealed by the Child Protection Act, which we passed before, and when we proclaim it, the Social Empowerment Agency becomes the body responsible for ensuring that the Child Protection Act is enforced. And in the interpretation section, in section 2, we give a variety of definitions, Madam Deputy Speaker, that speak to social assistance, social protection, and vulnerable persons. We've made it very clear what it is and who it is that we're talking about during the course of this bill. Sections 4 and 5 establish the agency and it lists its functions, Madam Deputy Speaker. And these functions allow us really to do the work that is fit for purpose in a new and modern Barbados, Madam Deputy Speaker. Section 6 and 7 looks at the funds of the agency, how those funds are to be received, how we can get funds and how we must report on those funds and so on, Madam Deputy Speaker. and it allows us to work with the NGO community, the international community. I believe one of the reasons that we kept this as a board, Madam Deputy Speaker, is because a board can receive funds, and a board should be in a position, where it can properly account for people's monies, Madam Deputy Speaker. So that if you receive funds, you need to tell people where the funds are being allocated. I am sure that this is not a matter on which the member for Christchurch South and I differ. If you receive funds, you need to tell people where the funds are allocated. Sections 8 and 9, Madam Deputy Speaker, speak to the accounts of the agency and the appointment of staff in terms of keeping proper books. It authorizes the agency to employ its staff. And again, I want to reiterate that this is not going to be a political body, but once this is enshrined in legislation, that person, whoever decides to join this body, is protected in law and can only be released for cause, Madam Deputy Speaker. Section 10 speaks to the role of the executive director, and I would want to say here that this perhaps is going to be one of the most important choices for the ministry and for the committee that is set up at the board to pick a leader or a person who exercises leadership through what is most uncertain times. You know, Madam Deputy Speaker, we are dealing with an uncertain external environment. Uncertain wasn't the word we used. We are dealing with an evolving external environment, Madam Deputy Speaker. And that is going to have implications for all of us. And it's certainly going to have implications for persons in the social services sector. You know, the reality is, Madam Deputy Speaker, for people who are vulnerable, they feel the impact of shocks first. And they recover from those shocks last. And therefore, we have to be sure that we build a system that is best able to protect persons at all stages of this life cycle, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is funny, permit me, Madam Deputy Speaker, to be speaking this to you when you would have done so much of this work, but alas, such is the reality of our experience at the moment. But I do hope you get to share your thoughts during the course of this discussion. Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. We really need to pick people now who are fit for purpose. And the leadership. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have said I am not going to ask anybody to focus only on qualifications. The board will pick who they want. I'm not getting involved in that. But I hope that they realize that for this particular space, there are a lot of equally important considerations. Qualifications, yes, but people have to care about people to be in this particular profession, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sections 11 and 12 speak to pension rights and employment of public officers and others, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is very important. In fact, this is one of the conversations we most had with the unions, to ensure that we have protected the staff from the mainstream government, that would be in NDU and the welfare, and we've enshrined it in the legislation. The protection of the staff is enshrined in this legislation. There was also some concern at the Child Care Board and the National Assistance Board, although they're already boards, that they too want to be protected in this legislation. And in Section 12, we specifically speak to those agencies and we protect them all in the legislation. So no staff member has to worry that we are just talking, because we've said it in the legislation that no less favorable conditions is made clear, gratuity is carried over, pension is carried over. We have protected the staff entirely, and it's written into the legislation. And even as the staff, I believe they're listening to me, I want to say to the staff, have no fear, because your rights are protected in this bill. Sections 15 to 19 look at the establishment, functions, and delegation of the social empowerment agency and the board, and its capacity to acquire real property and so on. Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, you're going to see over the next few years a rollout of us in this agency being responsible for facilities for persons with disabilities. We already have enough funds to start the work at Sterling. So at Sterling, we're going to be building out 30 residences for persons with disabilities and 30 residences for the elderly. And we will begin that work very soon. In fact, we've already started in some cases. We're also looking at one in St. Thomas, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm sure you would be pleased to know that we're working actively on the one in St. Thomas. to be able to have a facility for persons who are elderly. And I know you've been asking for this for a long time. We have some resources to be able to do that. We're looking at other places, but this country needs to build facilities for the elderly. It needs to build facilities for persons with disabilities. And we do all of that while we still emphasize that our principal position is that you must age in place, you must care in place, and so on. So that we encourage families to play a role. You know, one of the most heartbreaking parts of this work, Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the most heartbreaking experiences and realities that came to me and now live in my consciousness during this conversation was that in one of the training sessions with clients, because a lot of the work we did was also with clients. This was not an exercise done only with staff and with professionals, with the clients. When we considered naming the agency, the Agency for Family Services Department, the word family triggered the vast majority of the clients negatively, because they said that their experience with their family was not one that gave them any support, any joy, or any pleasure. The word family. That when they think of family, they do not think of family the way the sociologists define family in their textbooks, as the first agency of primary socialization and all that. They saw it as the first and primary agency for pain. And that we have a lot of work to do around rebuilding families. We listen, Madam Deputy Speaker, to the conversations on occasion in our communities, on blocks, on the call-in programs, and this cry for families. We must go back to families, but we must understand what family means to these people, to our people, to us, and to be able to say that we're going to make family as a definition relevant to the persons who are speaking about the family. So that when we talked about the Agency for Family Services, they don't want to come to family services because family services meant hurt. And that, of course, led us to the conclusion that we needed to look at outcomes as opposed to process. Social empowerment, the Social Empowerment Agency. That is how we got here, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sections 20 and 21 is not a very long bill. Sections 20 and 21 speak of conflict of interest of the director. So if you know, which is standard, if you know that you have an involvement in something, you must excuse yourself. Section 21 allows the minister to give general directions of a policy nature, which is also standard. Sections 24 and 25 speaks to the provision of care centers and social care centers. And we've already started looking at where we're going to locate some of them. I saw an ad that spoke to the Social Empowerment Agency is coming. And I look forward to Barbadians being excited about the possibility of these new agencies, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've said to the staff as well on numerous occasions, if people do not feel the change within a month or two, we've lost the script. So that you do not have 2 months to get yourself ready. I don't even think you have 2 weeks or 2 days. I think we have to be ready from the time we open up. People have to feel that we are a different agency, that they are treated well. Sections 30 to 32 speak to the appeal by aggrieved applicants, and I spoke about that. We have set up appeal committees, and you could appeal to the executive director and to the appeal committee. If you don't feel the executive director has heard you properly, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the bill for disabilities, we go further and speak to a tribunal. In sections 38 to 40, in sections 33 to 36, we speak of the assets that move from these other agencies to this agency. 38 to 40, we look at the application of public financial management and the exemption from duties and taxes, just regular things as you set up a new agency. And section 40 makes it clear that anybody who personates an officer of this department is guilty of an offense, and it has consequences. Lastly, Madam Deputy Speaker, section 41 speaks to the regulations, and these regulations must come quickly hereafter to allow us to say how we're going to do this work. Sections 42 and 43 has the amendments and the consequential amendments. I spoke of those earlier. Section 44 and 45 speaks of the repeal and saving and commencement of the act, sir, ma'am. But at the end of the day, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I close, the overarching advantage of this legislation is that it provides clear and unambiguous guidelines on how we should treat to vulnerable persons going forward. Madam Deputy Speaker, we have put in place an agency and a system that protects the staff, because the staff in this ministry and in this agency, the staff is extremely important, but it also protects the clients, Madam Deputy Speaker. It prioritizes our clients because our clients are important. Many people do not feel important. You know, I saw this morning when I opened my Instagram, I saw one of those things that pop up talking about greeting people with certain degree of affection because you don't know what they had just experienced. And then it showed a whole series of people having bad experiences but being brought to smile by a simple act of kindness. Madam Deputy Speaker, I do not want to sound like some lost optimist, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to offer kindness. It is too easy, Madam Deputy Speaker. I have found on occasion myself, where generally I'm of a gregarious nature, but some days I too might be in a mood. Somebody experienced me and then they say, oh, Kurt Humphrey's a horrible human being. And I just having a bad day. And all of us will have bad days. All of us might have an experience where we have a bad day. But I don't think people are going to judge you for the rest of your life on one bad day. What we cannot afford is a system of bad days, where everything makes people feel badly about their reality. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have tried, I know my staff is also trying, to posture ourselves in a way that makes people feel good when they interact with the ministry, to be bubbly and to be shiny, make people feel good. At the end of the day, Madam Deputy Speaker, we've linked this legislation with the disabilities legislation, the child protection legislation, and I will speak to the elderly legislation as well, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it would allow us to function in a way that is connected, cohesive, that transforms Barbados. So I want to close, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I began, by thanking my staff for the work that they would have done on behalf of the government, on behalf of the country, on behalf of the vulnerable, on their own behalf. Madam Deputy Speaker, I want to thank them because I know that this is not easy work and that oftentimes it is thankless work. I want to thank all of them. I want to thank the persons who work cleaning the nurseries, cleaning other people's homes. I want to thank the cooks, the maintenance officers, the artisans. I want to thank the home care workers, the elder care workers, everyone who works in the child care facilities, those who work for persons with disabilities, every single one who works at welfare. I want to thank all of them. I want to thank the NGOs that we've associated ourselves with. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've expressed my fundamental ideological position, and it will never change, which is that a lot of the work of the government needs to be done through the NGO sector, where they have greater authenticity and legitimacy and can reach people exactly where they are. And our job is to facilitate that. And I know it's difficult because the social services sector came from a kind of a Keynesian background, where the state is responsible for everything. The state is responsible for doing everything. The state is responsible for managing the market. The state is responsible for providing people social care. The state is responsible for everything. And I feel that while you might take absolute responsibility, you have to facilitate other people in that work. That is why our estimates speak to us supporting so many NGOs, Madam Deputy Speaker. So I want to thank all of our colleagues. And I look forward, as I close, to us being able to build a much better Barbados than the Barbados that we came and found. I believe when we look at all of the legislation in the social sector that we have brought, I believe that when we look at this social empowerment agency and what it potentially offers for Barbadians, I believe when we look at the training that we are giving the staff, and I believe when we prioritize ordinary Barbadians, that we will make a significant change in the social and economic and political landscape of this country. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, with those few words, I ask that this bill be read a second time.
Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to share a few thoughts this morning on this bill, the matter of the Social Empowerment Agency. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I know, like the Honourable Member who led this debate, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South, that this is an area that you are very familiar with. I think it is one that Barbadians generally understand and maybe are agreed on, but I think there are a few things that need to be emphasized or re-emphasized. And the bill speaks primarily to an amalgamation of a number of social agencies. And so I joined the debate. I'm not even sure if I should call it a debate. I joined the conversation because this is something that I believe all of us are at one ad idem on. I joined the conversation from the perspective of having a certain responsibility for another aspect of social protection, which speaks, and I'm referring to social security. And so I think as we practice in this government, where we relate to each other and we recognize that we are one government serving a single country, the convergence, the working with of our two ministries is something that is important to both myself and the Honourable Member for St. Michael South. Now, this amalgamation makes sense for a number of reasons, makes good sense for a number of reasons. And I, as I continue, really have to thank the Honourable Member and his team at the Ministry of People Empowerment, and yourself, to Madam Deputy Speaker, who was his predecessor, for these significant pieces of legislation that we have passed in this Honourable Chamber, debated and passed, that speak fundamentally to the upliftment of people. I refer to those already mentioned: people with disabilities, persons with disabilities, or the rights of persons with disabilities, the child protection legislation, and we have been informed this morning that legislation relating to the elderly, and we know that we've had a policy, and now legislation is to follow with respect to the elderly. And Madam Deputy Speaker, these two acts and a proposed bill speak fundamentally to what a government is about: protecting those who are vulnerable, ensuring that we can consider ourselves a civilized society, a society that looks after those that need some assistance, that need a hand up, that need encouragement, that need support systems around them to help them to get to where we would want them to be. And these three pieces represent, for me, persons with disabilities, children, and the elderly. Three groups that as a country, that as a society, we ought to have some significant focus on. Now, the matter of the amalgamation of some existing agencies, some boards, some departments, is important for people in St. Peter. Many of my constituents who have need for the support of the state have a challenge going to the welfare department. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not talking about any either real or perceived treatment from persons who work in the welfare department. I'm talking about the fact that it is called the welfare department. And so that is the first barrier to seeking the assistance that for some people is absolutely necessary for a decent existence in a country and in a society and in a community. So that the idea of having to go to the welfare department, I speak to constituents, and when I ask, have you gone to the welfare department, people who have not gone, who know nothing about what some may consider about treatment, you can see on their faces that their dignity is impacted. And Madam Deputy Speaker, you know, we have a way in Barbados about speaking to pride. And we have sometimes a very disparaging way of referring to false pride. And those of us who feel we have achieved have and sometimes demonstrate a challenge with those who seem not to want to approach some of these agencies. It is because we have not experienced the challenge of leaving a village and going into Spikesong, in my case, going up the steps by the library and pushing the door. Now, once you come off Chapel Street and you don't go in by the post office, it means you're going to welfare. Because very few people are going to the library. You're going to welfare. There are vendors at the corner of Chapel Street and Queen Street. There are people who are going to Republic Bank. Those who are going to Republic Bank are not the ones going up the stairs. As small as their savings may be, they can go into the bank. So that having to go to a place, an agency, an organization that is known as the welfare, and up by me, Honourable Member, we don't even call it the welfare department. We talk about going by welfare or going to welfare. So that stigma is a challenge that any caring government would want to address. Not to bash people by saying that if you know you're in need, you should go. We ought to recognize that people there is a certain dignity that we must encourage people to have and to maintain. And so the matter of amalgamating and creating the Social Empowerment Agency, that name change, just the nomenclature, is important as far as I am concerned, as far as the people of Barbados are concerned. The same goes for the Child Care Board. It is not the same, but for families where a child where the family has to receive a visit from the Child Care Board. Well, I'll tell you, Madam Deputy Speaker, let not the vehicle that turns up at the house say Child Care Board, because then everybody starts to wonder what is happening. These are things that impact the dignity of human beings. And so, I repeat, a social empowerment agency, I believe, is the right way to go. Now, government has a role to play, and I'm focusing now on the matter of empowerment. Government has a particular role to play, the world is changing very quickly. But Madam Deputy Speaker, governments of countries have a responsibility to empower the people of those countries. I pause just now because my orientation is socialist, but I realize that the world has taken a sharp swerve to the right. But I say to Barbados, to Barbadians through you, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the world ought not to be a jungle. In a jungle, the fittest survive. Nature has worked out, and the Honourable Member for Christchurch West Central may know this better than me, but nature has worked out how the weak can survive among the strong. So in a jungle, you will find snails while you find lions. With respect to human beings, it is not as simple, or we have not worked out how that happens without the intervention of the state. And so the matter of empowerment, I am calling on all those who will be involved in this agency, in this new structure, to recognize that word. It is the longest word in the name. It is the most important word in the name. This agency must be about the empowerment of people in Barbados who, not that they don't often have some level of power, but who do not feel in our structure, in our system, that they have the power that they need to move forward, to advance themselves culturally, socially, economically in this country. Government has that responsibility, and government is executing and expecting to execute that responsibility through this agency. So the matter of empowering also brings with it the enfranchising. And enfranchising is not just about economic activity. Enfranchising has as its root the idea of creating a mindset in people that allows them to move forward and do the things that they dream of doing, do the things that they see others doing, and sometimes wish that they would do. We sometimes, from time to time, we as a society that is generally seen as a Christian society, you know, we talk about not coveting, not seeing what other people have and want to go after it. But I want to say to all people of faith, particularly of the Christian faith, that while the Bible says, thou shalt not covet, the Bible also says, covet, and it adds the word earnestly, at least in the King James Version, the best gifts. And so there is nothing wrong with aspiring for better. This agency, that this bill, when it becomes an act, will allow us to do, what it will allow us to do, will enfranchise people, will allow people to improve their circumstances, not just economically, but improve their circumstances socially, psychologically, and ultimately economically. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, all that we do as we look at this bill speaks to empowering people. Now, the matter of social protection, as societies change, also has to change. And this government, as connected and as focused as it is on people, human beings, and uplifting people, we would recall that in this chamber in 2023, we addressed the matter of change in governance, change in structure of the other arm of social protection, which is social security. And so as we transform social protection under the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, we do this having done some significant changes to the structure of the National Insurance and Social Security Service. And so I say that to remind us of that, but also to say that government recognizes that as we move forward as time passes, as situations change, then those organizations, those structures that administer our social protection, that are in charge of our social protection, also have to change. And so we've changed the Social Security organization, and now we are changing the organizations that are responsible for people with disabilities, the elderly, children, the vulnerable in our society. There is also, as mentioned by the Honourable Member from St. Michael South, the matter of decentralizing. This is important because, asking people who don't have money to find 2 sets of bus fare to get to help. It's almost like asking somebody, and I've had this situation in St. Peter very recently at Porter's Road. It would almost be as farcical as asking somebody whose house is burning to go and bring the fire truck. When people are in need, the assistance needs to be close by. And so the matter of decentralizing what I heard the Honourable Member refer to as care centers, centers for empowering people, decentralizing these make much sense because care and the tools for empowerment must be close to people. I have already spoken to the Honourable Minister, the member for St. Michael South, and I've said to him that we are thinking along similar lines with respect to Social Security. Because a person who wants to sign up for Social Security should not have to go to Culmarock, that is not the name of the road, Culloden Road, at the corner of Culmarock and Culloden Road, should not have to go that far from Pike Corner, even from Oistins or Thornbury Hill. You should not have to go all that way to sign up to be a part of the Social Security system. And so we've started the conversation. We have not made all the decisions that are necessary. The board obviously has to weigh in on this. But at the National Insurance and Social Security Service, we have started the conversation on aligning ourselves with the other arms of social protection and to have a presence at least at some of these decentralized care centers so that under one umbrella, in one place, there's access to all the components of social protection. And I think fundamentally we recognize that it makes sense. We just have to work out the dynamics. But it is the intention of me as minister responsible for Social Security to have a Social Security presence at some of these locations that the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs will be putting in place, those referred to by the minister as care centers. You see, Honourable Deputy Speaker, this government is about people. This government is about caring for people. This government is about uplifting people. And so we pursue an agenda that speaks to empowering, enfranchising, helping people to realize their dreams. And Madam Deputy Speaker, we can go back to 2018 and the offering and the providing, the giving of an increase to public officers, a pay increase to public officers in 2018. That was about people. In 2018, we increased the non-contributory pension in this country. That was about people. That was about raising the lot of people. In 2018, we restarted the payment of tuition fees for students in tertiary education. That was about people. What we're doing here now in March of 2025 is a continuation of what this government has been about from the time we were elected in May, at the end of May of 2018. This government is about lifting people. And so we recognize that the safety net is about protecting people, because there are people who need to be protected. There are people who we can consider to be weaker. In labor circles, we talk about workers who are vulnerable, or workers who are in situations of vulnerability, because not everybody wants to be considered vulnerable, and we do not want to refer too loosely to people necessarily as vulnerable. So there are persons who are vulnerable, but there are persons who are fine, but they are in positions of vulnerability. And so the social safety net has to be for those people. There are people in situations we call, well, there's a British labor economist, Guy Standing, who talks about precarity, people in precarious situations. Social protection is not just for people who have lost all or who do not have anything. We also have to recognize as a government that we have to be working to protect people who may be on the edge. They have not fallen off. They may be on the edge. Social protection and a social outlook, socialist outlook to governance has to recognize that our responsibility is also to stop people from falling off the edge, those who are close to the edge. And so addressing the vulnerable, those who are in situations of vulnerability, those who are in precarious situations, has to be top of mind for us. Because as a government, we are concerned with creating a situation of equity. We are not, I don't want to devolve into, I shouldn't say devolve, but I don't want to move into a purely philosophical discussion. But I'm not talking about necessarily equality across the board, but there has to be a certain equity. Everybody must have the opportunity to do well for themselves. Everybody must have the opportunity to do well for their family and for their community. Everybody may not become wealthy, so not equal in that sense, but there must be equal opportunity. And a safety net must be there for those who face challenges and need the assistance. Empowerment is the other area of responsibility, so that we provide that safety net, but the empowerment that I spoke to earlier must be recognized as an important part of what the government will do for its people. And so we are committed, Madam Deputy Speaker, to ensuring that people are empowered to access education and to use education to advance themselves. Education, not just academic, but education with respect to what we refer to as technical and vocational skills. All of it is education. We provide all the training that is necessary. I remind the country that the National Transformation Initiative has available through Coursera thousands of courses offered free at the point of delivery for all Barbadians who are interested in taking up that opportunity. Free at the point of delivery, because we as a government, we are about empowering people through education, through providing the safety net, through providing training in financial literacy. In all kinds of ways, we are about empowerment. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, empowerment is necessary. I will soon wrap up. Empowerment is necessary when we recognize the inherent humanity of all human beings. When we recognize the inherent humanity of all human beings and their right to a dignified life, that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sure has driven many who have worked in the social agencies before. But Madam Deputy Speaker, I am hopeful that under the new agency, there will be a renewed sense of the fact that the calling of those who work in this agency is to reinforce the dignity of human beings, recognizing their inherent humanity. I will also share, Madam Deputy Speaker, that this amalgamation must be more than just achieving operational and economic efficiencies. This amalgamation is about moving people from where they are to where they want to be. And I am confident that as government continues its program of building people, building their capacity, building their psychological positioning, because that is important. When we continue on this path, I am absolutely confident that the people of Barbados will see their lot improved, generally speaking. But I'm also confident that Barbados as a country will, even more than it is now, be recognized as a place in an evolving civilization where human beings are recognized as human beings, where they are treated, where they are helped, and where they are put in a position to contribute in a meaningful way to the development of their communities. And with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to support this bill, the Social Empowerment Agency bill, and expect that not just the people in St. Peter, but across this country will be the ultimate beneficiaries of all that we've heard laid out today. I'm obliged to you.
Our member, St. Michael South.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I rise very briefly to thank the Honourable Member for St. Peter for his support on this bill. You know, there are some people in any place with whom you have almost the exact same mentality, and the Honourable Member for St. Peter and myself, we share a very similar perspective on the world. So does the member for St. Michael South Central, if I am being very honest. A very similar perspective on the world, and I think most of us in this parliament share a very similar perspective on life in this regard. I have had the good fortune of being mentored by some good men and women, Madam Deputy Speaker, and again, there's one, the Honourable Member for St. Michael East, as Minister of Social Transformation, and we had many conversations around this amalgamation. I had the opportunity to learn from him. I want to thank him. I want to thank the former member for St. Michael South East, as I said, the honourable former member, Mr. Hamilton Lashley. I want to thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker, for the work you would have done in this space. All of those who went before me. I mean, if I'm being honest, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to be in this place all the time, I feel a special debt to those who are on the other side. Yeah, permit me to say it's the former member of Social Care, Mr. Steve Blackett, who would also had conversations with me on what social services must look like. I want to thank the Honourable former members, Chris Sinclair as well, when he was in this ministry. Again, we spoke about what social services should look like. I want to thank Dr. Lowe and the great beyond now where he stands or lies. I want to thank him too. Actually, Dr. Lowe and the Honourable Member for St. Michael East, and Mr. Hamilton Lashley, and yourself, Madam Deputy Speaker. You may recall we met and we all had a conversation around what social services should look like. And all of us discussed it and all of us agreed. I really want to thank, because I don't think this is one where we have been really political at all. There's been a partisan political divide. I feel a special desire, perhaps compulsion in my soul also to thank the leader of the opposition. And I don't need to speak for the leader of the opposition. He's proven over the last few years, the last few months, that he's quite capable of speaking for himself. But I do know that we had conversations on this bill and that there were questions asked of me privately in relation to how we will protect the staff after this amalgamation. I believe that we were able to satisfy his concerns. Also, what are the specific changes that will help poor people? I believe we've been able to satisfy his concerns. And I want to thank the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, who did not speak in this debate, but who certainly had expressed a very positive view on the need for us to improve social services delivery. Madam Deputy Speaker, I close by saying the phrase used by the member for St. Peter resonates with me. It must be about dignity, recognizing people's inherent humanity. That's brilliant. Dignity, recognizing people's inherent humanity. That is what we have to be able to do, Madam Deputy Speaker. And, you know, development is said to be distorted if some people benefit and others don't. Distorted development does not benefit a country. And when the Honourable Member spoke of equitable distribution, it was, in my mind, a reinforcement that we need to get rid of distorted development, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I close by saying that in social development, it is about three things I say to my staff: how problems are managed, how needs are met, and what opportunities for advancement are created. How problems are managed, how needs are met, opportunities for advancement. And I believe we've been able to create an entity that does these three things. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, there's nothing left for me to say. I want to thank all the members in this House. I want to thank the members of Cabinet. We've had robust conversations on this area. I thank them for their support and for their contributions. I want to thank the members of Parliament, the whole of the public, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I close again by saying to my staff, we only have one chance to get this right. We have one chance. And if people do not feel that this agency has made a difference to their lives immediately, we will never be able to convince them. And therefore, we have to begin at the very beginning by doing right by people when we launch the Social Empowerment Agency. With those few words, Madam Deputy Speaker, I ask that this bill be read a second time.
Honourable members, the question is that this bill be read a second time. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg that you do now leave the chair and that this House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and allow the Honourable Chamber to resolve itself in committee. All honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This Honourable Chamber now will be in committee.
This Honourable House is now in committee. Yes, sir.
1, clauses 1 through 3.
Chair, I beg that clause 1, part 1, clauses 1 to 3 stand part.
Question is that part 1, clauses 1 to 3 stand part. All honourable members in favor, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. He thinks the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 4 to 21.
Madam Chair, I beg to move that part 2 stand part, clauses 4 to 21.
The question is that part 2, clauses 4 to 21 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 22 and 23.
Chair, I beg to move that part 3, clauses 22 and 23 stand part.
The question is that part 3, clauses 22, 23 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 4, clauses 24 to 32.
Chair, I beg to move that part 4, clauses 24 to 32 stand part.
The question is that part 4, clauses 24 to 32 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 5, clauses 33 to 45.
Chair, I beg to move that part 5, clauses 33 to 45 stand part.
The question is that part 5, clauses 33 to 45 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The first schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill.
The question is that the first schedule will be the first schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill.
The question is that the second schedule will be the second schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule.
Chair, I beg to move that the third schedule be the third schedule to the bill.
The question is that the third schedule will be the third schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that the fourth schedule be the fourth schedule to the bill.
The question is that the fourth schedule will be the fourth schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report.
Chair, I beg to move that you do not report to her honor the Deputy Speaker the passage of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do not report to her honor the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Honorable members, the chairman of committees has reported to me the passing of one bill in committee.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
Question is that this bill be read the third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Amen.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do not pass and be cited as the Social Empowerment Agency Act 2025.
The question is that this bill be now passed and so cited. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. This bill is now passed and so cited.
Trying to catch your attention. 12. Number 12. The old resolution, or you want to do 12 and 14 together? Madam Deputy Speaker, may we take orders number 12 and 14 together? Say yes. 12 and 14.
Honourable members, this honourable chamber will now take orders number 12 and the 14 together. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Orders number 12 and 14 together.
Orders number 12 and 14, in the name of the Honourable Leader of the House, to move that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee to consider grants of sums of money for the service of this island. Questions?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that you do now leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee for further consideration of the resolution.
The question is that I do now leave the chair and allow this honourable chamber Standing Finance Committee. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honourable chamber is now standing in Finance Committee.
This Honourable House is now in Standing Finance Committee.
Honourable Minister of Finance, to move the passing resolution to grant the sum of $2,288,465 from the Consolidated Fund and to place it at the disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2024-25 as shown in the supplementary estimates number 1, the 2024-25, which form the schedule to this resolution. Head 87, Ministry of Education, Technology, and Vocational Training. $546,227.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Apologies. Head 87 relates to the reopening, sir, of the Alma Paris Memorial School. And I do recall, sir, that the Cabinet had agreed that we would rename it the Alma Paris Academy. And as you know, sir, that this facility, educational institution, was closed some years ago, and it left a gap in the provision of educational services for public students, as you are aware, sir, in relation to persons who, based on the current criteria in relation to performance in the common entrance, did not specifically meet that criteria, but no real provision was made for their support. They were dispersed effectively across the system, sir. And therefore, the government believes that in order for us to be able to ensure that those persons who will need very specific interventions in relation to their education. That is, it was important that we reopen the school, and to be able, in the same way as we just did, sir, in relation to the creation of the Social Empowerment Agency, to ensure that the programming that is required for persons who need that dedicated care and attention, sir, that can be provided. So the sums of money is being asked here in Head 87, sir, has already been dispensed with respect to the upgrade of the facilities, and I know that the Ministry of Education certainly will be looking very quickly in relation to having that facility reopened, such that we can reallocate persons across the secondary system to be able to access educational service in the way, sir, that they ought to, rather than being shepherded in a sense, sir, with the rest of the student body across the various educational institutions at the secondary level. And so, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that Head 87 stand part.
Second.
The question is that Head 87 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. We think the ayes have it.
Ed 91, sir. Ministry of Youth, Sport and Community Empowerment, $1,742,238.
Mr. Chairman, the sums of money being appropriated here, sir, supported the introduction of the Prime Minister's Cup, sir, which, as you know, sir, created opportunities for a genuine semi-professional approach to providing financial support for footballers across a number of communities across Barbados. These events, sir, specifically was intended to ensure that the reconnection within our community, sir, and certainly the culmination that Kensington on the night of independence, sir, I think all of Barbados can be proud as to not just that the COP itself was executed well, but it really did provide an opportunity for us to be able to assess the talent, genuinely so, that may exist across communities, and the ability, sir, to mix different levels of clubs, I think was important, and therefore these sums that were appropriated here, sir, $1.7 million, some of it clearly would have been prize monies for the teams. Each player was given a stipend for each game. There was a number of supporting activities around trainings in soft skills, as well as other training opportunities that were provided throughout the execution of this particular tournament, such that we hope, sir, that going forward, that this now becomes a model for how we can change potentially the trajectory for persons in this particular space. Whilst I'm on this topic, sir, I want to reiterate that within the context of being able to have organized sports, as you would appreciate, sir, once we can get persons who are involved not just in the playing of the football itself, sir, or whatever activity it is, but there are also ancillary support around tournaments like these, and therefore the extent to which you have persons being trained in commentary and the production of the content is really where you want to make sure that as we move forward, sir, that we can broaden the participation of not just, as I say, not just the people playing the football, but the supporting elements of it. And I hope, sir, that next year, all the communities who will qualify based on the result of the next BFA season and where people are, that I hope that communities across Barbados will see the need to invest some quality time with respect to being able to ensure that they can support, as far as possible, sir, their local teams. And I hope that we'll be able to showcase year after year after year, sir, not just the talents of Barbadians in relation to on the field, but equally, sir, being able to show that these types of interventions can spawn additional activities, sir, in relation to building greater community resilience. And so, sir, with those very few words, I'd like to move that head 91, stand by.
May I have a second?
The question is that head 91 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Order 14A, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Minister of Finance, to move to pass on the resolution to grant the sum of $314,104 from the Consolidated Fund, to place at disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2024-25, as shown in the supplementary estimates number 2, 2024-2025, which form the schedule to this resolution. Head 12, sir, Parliament. In the sum of $140,462.
Mr. Chairman, the sums being appropriated here, sir, they're associated with the fact that Barbados has assumed the chairmanship of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, sir. And with that, it meant that both the Speaker of the House as well as the President, sir, in honoring our commitments in relation to chairing that association, has meant that they have had to as well as the staff of Parliament accompanying them in relation to being able to execute their duties in that respect. And therefore, as we seek to, and I believe, sir, later this year, we will be hosting the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Conference here in Barbados. And therefore, I believe that we will be able to see, certainly as we are seeing globally, hoping to see greater synergies in respect to the advance of democracy, certainly within the Commonwealth. And therefore, these monies were appropriated to be able to help support those activities. And so, with those very few words, I beg to move that head 12 stand part.
The question is that head 12 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 13, Prime Minister's Office. $70,417,645.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This sum of monies has essentially three parts. The first part, small amount, is to do with salaries, personal emoluments. As you know, as our convention, we don't really debate personal emoluments here. The second part has to do with the digitization center and monies for that. And it's important, and it became so obviously important why digitization of all of our records is essential. Because it gives us an opportunity to store them and store especially historic records in multiple places. Lil, we remember when we had that fire at the archives and several documents destroyed. And if we had only been able to digitize even before that, we would have had at least copies of those documents. So the second part of this money is to be able to pay and accelerate the digitization program and the operations of digitization. And the final part about it, the larger sum, is for the geriatric hospital. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, as you drive along Waterford Boulevard, you would see the geriatric hospital is moving at a pace. And as you even think of what we had in the last presentation, as Barbados becomes a super-aged population, it means that we have to make preparations for our aged population. And this is the first time that Barbados will have a purpose-built geriatric hospital for its people. And I just wanted to use an opportunity to give an update to the people of Barbados. The West Wing is moving at pace. Slicking and priming is completed on all the 4 floors. The first coat of paint has begun and is being applied to the ground and first floor. Installation of all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing on all floors is ongoing and nearing completion. Installation of all the exterior lights and fixtures is moving. The administration core is also moving at a pace. We're at the stage of slicking and priming walls on all the floors. The south wing as well is moving. Again, preparation for slicking and priming all the floors. Installation of kitchen drains. Final portion of the ground floor slab is in preparation for casting. Construction and plastering of the internal block work ongoing as well on all floors. The annex, same thing again, slicking and priming on all the floors of the superstructure. Construction of the internal block work is completed. Plastering of the internal block work throughout is nearing completion. The chapel, installation of standing seam roof sheeting is ongoing. Peel and stick membrane on the roof is completed. Beam filling for the roof is completed, and slicking and priming of all interior is going on as well. The central plant, the chillers have been placed on the concrete plinths on the chiller yard, and the connecting for the chiller water pipes to the chillers. Ongoing installation of all the equipment in the pump room and central plant is all going and moving at a pace. Generator building, the parapet wall and roof have been constructed. Construction of the superstructure is completed. First coat of paint has been applied to the interior and the exterior of the building. Water reclamation, the construction of block work, superstructure, plant has been completed, and the first coat of paint is being applied to the exterior of the structure. Pump room, construction of the superstructure for the pump room is totally completed. Painting is now going on, and the installation of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is moving at a pace. Infrastructure works, as we can all see, this works on the exterior, on the main road. Cutting of the wall and putting in the sidewalk is completed, and the works for the internal access road for the sidewalk is ongoing. Grading the levels, the area of the access road is being raised as well to the required level, and we're now installing the drainage pipes and catch basins as well. 90%, as I said, of the walkway has been cast on Waterford Main Road. Reinforcement has been laid, and the remaining 10% is left to be cast. All the trenches have been dug for chill water pipes running for the west wing to the chiller yard, and delaying the installation of chill water pipes is completed and now making connections. Mr. Chairman, we are making significant construction progress on this, and I am on target to be able to get this facility completed this year. And I beg to move the Head 13 stand part.
Question is that Head 13 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. We think the ayes have it.
Head 27, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, the sum of $7,508,792.
Mr. Chairman, the sums of monies being appropriated here relate to 2 specific areas. As you know, sir, with the passage of Hurricane Beryl last July, there was significant damage to the fishing harbor, as well as the Bridgetown port and other. The Coast Guard also got some damage. We all saw the videos of the Jolly Roger sinking and a couple other boats. I think Dream Chaser was the other one as well, sir. And so the specific piece of monies here, sir, with respect to the 5 million for the port, was actually to pay for the armor stones, which I'm sure Barbadians may have seen being offloaded in the area, as the works have commenced in respect to that. So this was the advance that was made with respect to us after the coastal assessment was done, with respect to the specification of those stones. We all recall, sir, seeing the breakwater at the Bridgetown Harbour. Effectively, those stones were tossing as if they were jacks, as we used to play with, sir, when we were young, and each of those stones weighed 5 tons each. And therefore, it was important that even though the facility was built in the 70s, sir, in relation to being able to withstand a Category 1 hurricane, back then, we had a situation last year where we had a Category 3 storm, 100 miles east of Barbados, creating significant damage. And therefore, the immediate repair is temporary, and therefore, we needed to make sure that we got this work started in order to give greater certainty with respect to the industry moving forward in relation to the execution of those activities. In relation to the work for the civil aviation, sir, we continue to provide not just the requirements for additional staffing, but also additional equipment to upgrade, sir, the civil aviation framework in the country. I think we can all attest to the fact that air safety is critically important, given what we've seen in recent times internationally with respect to safety. And therefore, as Barbados upgrades its systems, training of its people within the civil aviation space, these monies were appropriated to help support that endeavor. We've long spoken about Barbados becoming a Category 1 jurisdiction according to the Federal Aviation Authority, and therefore this government has taken the concrete steps to be able to ensure that that goal can be attained by being able to make the necessary investments to achieve such status, which then allows us then to do more business within the North American space. And therefore, sir, with those very few words, I beg to move that Head 27 stand part.
The question is that Head 27 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 31, sir. Ministry of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology in the sum of $10,678,229. Big pardon is 19 million, sir.
Thanks, Chair. Yes. So the sums of money being appropriated, sir, relate to a few things, and we know that we had some challenges last year, sir, with respect to cybersecurity. We did, but these specific sums here related to, in part, sir, consultancy in relation to advisories in relation to cybersecurity, and this was early in the year. We also had provisions within the context of being able to renew the various licenses. And let me say for the record, sir, the fact that the supplementary is here now is not in any way related to the timing of the event. So as we transition from 2023, 24 to 24, 25, administratively we moved the renewal of those, the payment, I should say, from one ministry to the next, and therefore the sums being appropriated here was in support of ensuring that the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology renewed those licenses. So nothing related to the timing with respect to the fact that the resolution is here. Now, as well as support for establishing government's e-services platform, which is really going to be the highway, if you like, sir, that allows all government departments to be able to connect and exchange information as required. Lastly, sir, Barbadians may, on their way to or from the airport, approaching the Newton roundabout, the Henry Ford roundabout, sir, at Newton, may have noticed that there's a interesting building being constructed next to Gildan, next to Gildan. And the money's being appropriated here are really resources that were provided to the Barbados Industrial Development Corporation to be able to help build out the Innovation Center at Newton. It is perhaps the first time that we have really had a sustained expansion of industrial facilities in the country. And the intention there, sir, is to be able to do research and development, a lot of pharmaceutical research and R&D within that space, sir, as well as innovative, more life science research in relation to being able to target the fact that we have a fairly significant number of persons who graduate from the university in the science space, and we want to be able to leverage as much as possible those skills so that it is local companies doing research or international companies coming to do research. We've seen with respect to the pandemic that we need to boost our ability with respect to being able to develop not just vaccines, but specifically, sir, research in relation to diabetes, hypertension, and the medicines associated with treating those conditions for Black people. And therefore, a couple of weeks ago, we signed an agreement with Biomedical X, I believe, out of Europe to be able to establish a company here in collaboration with Export Barbados to start to do some work in this area to build capacity and to ensure then that the pharmaceuticals that we consume, that we can start to understand the genomics around how that affects us as Black people and start to develop the treatment, develop the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that are more suited, sir, to our DNA. And therefore, these monies were appropriated to be able to help build some of that infrastructure, modern facilities for companies to be able to operate. And therefore, with those very few words, sir, I beg to move the Head 31 stand part.
The question is that Head 31 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade in the sum of $5,920,778.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, sir, the Head 32 is speaking to a number of issues. First of all, legal fees to the firm of Voltaire Fieta, newly contracted staff, secondly, wages and rental of property. Let me speak first of all, sir, to the question of the legal fees because they arise largely out of two major hearings that Barbados is now participating in or has participated in. And they turn largely on the question of the climate crisis and the impact of the climate crisis on small states such as ours. The first, sir, was the hearing which was conducted in part by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, in part here in Barbados. It was a petition begun by the government of Colombia and also the government of Chile. And we joined, sir, in seeking a uniform interpretation of the law with respect to the protections which would be available in human rights arising from and applying the entire corpus of international law. The second hearing, sir, took place at The Hague before the International Court of Justice between November and December, and Barbados would have presented in November. And certainly that was a petition which was led by the island of Vanuatu, which, as we know, sir, has started to disappear beneath the ocean. And the questions there were, again, the question of protection against transboundary harm, which are caused by the emissions of dangerous gases and so on. And the right of states like Vanuatu to be entitled to compensation. The hearings are expected, both of them, to have judgments available sometime around the middle of this year, and so we await that. The second tranche of money before us, sir, which is being appropriated, speaks to 3 Deputy Consul General who have recently been appointed and deployed, 2 of whom will be in the United States of America, one in Miami, one in New York, and the third, sir, will be in Toronto. In fact, I should not say he's already been deployed because he's still here. He's not yet gone there. The purpose for these Deputy Consul General, sir, is to facilitate us with the ability for the first time to be able to bring a very targeted focus on the diasporic relationships between those of us here in Capital and those Barbadians living overseas. As you would appreciate, sir, it is of tremendous significance given the climate, which is, pardon the expression, the environment, which is now existing geopolitically in the United States of America. And we want to be in a position where we can extend the closest possible amount of cooperation, support, and management of processes with our diasporic brothers over there. Similarly, sir, the concern arises in Canada, which of course is not as acute at this stage as the United States of America, but the storm signals are also on the horizon. And frankly, we are building out a diasporic policy of a national nature, a global nature, so that we will be able better to relate to the diaspora across the world. Last, sir, is the sum of $1.6 million, which represents increased contributions to CARICOM, and that is as a result of CARICOM's contribution allocations being revised as they are done from time to time. And in addition to that, it includes 3 years of Barbados's contributions towards high-level representation on law and criminal justice, which is submitted to the CARICOM Secretariat. And the reason for that, sir, as you're well aware, our friends next door in Trinidad and Tobago are under a crisis still under a crisis induced by the criminal situation in that country. The region as a whole is particularly focused on the question of crime and its impact across boundaries. And we as a country have had to treat to this matter via a number of interventions, both social, legislative, and otherwise. So that, Mr. Chairman, sir, the work that is being done in CARICOM is being done in association with all of the members of CARICOM, all of the member states, so as to strengthen our ability to treat to this crisis that we are dealing with. Sir, with those few words, I would beg to move that Head 32 stand part.
The question is that Head 32 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Shares and information, the sum of $10,301,525.
Mr. Chairman, the supplementary provision that is being sought under this head, the amount of just over $10 million, is really dedicated to one of our SOEs, that of Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. It is intended that these monies should go towards the payment of PAYE arrears, VAT arrears, and arrears in respect of NAS, and also to facilitate payment of salaries, pension, and other operating expenses. I think the Chamber would be aware that Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation has had numerous challenges in recent years. Only, I think, in the last day or so, the public would have been given a brief as to the direction, given an indication of the direction that CBC wants to go in, and become a fully digital broadcasting corporation. But that is the future. The fact is that there are some significant commitments in respect of the employees that have to be provided for, and as the owner of this SOE, notwithstanding that we want to push them towards a state of self-sufficiency, it is incumbent on the government to make sure that the resources are provided to safeguard the livelihood, the pensions, and the other perquisites that are the property of the employees. I beg move this head stand part.
Question is that head 33 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 34, Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment, in the sum of $36,947,989.
Mr. Chairman, a few areas to cover. As you will recall, sir, we had a data breach at the Barbados Revenue Authority, and under the contingency head, we were able to engage a number of firms that not just responded. Sorry, so let me start with the BRA, sir. We engaged firms to be able to look at the forensic audits in relation to what transpired with respect to that data breach, as well as breach counsel to be able to ensure that persons were properly advised in relation to the legal requirements in respect of that matter. But subsequent to that as well, sir, we engaged a number of firms to look at government's critical infrastructure from a cybersecurity perspective to ensure that our posture, as it were, sir, would be hardened. And therefore, part of the resources here relate to that. We also provided humanitarian support to the government of Cuba. You know, sir, that Cuba has provided significant support to Barbados as well as to the region, particularly during the pandemic, sir. We were able to give some humanitarian aid to Cuba, sir, during the course of this year through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as provision for some hurricane relief, sir, to Grenada and St. Vincent after the passage of Hurricane Beryl. And given that there was significant humanitarian disruption directly with respect to the passage of Beryl on the countries of Grenada and St. Vincent, we felt that even though we had damage, that it was important that we help our neighbors, sir, even though we had significant damage as well. In relation to the other elements, sir, under general management, we also had to deal with some matters, sir, in relation to our policies related to CRIF, based on the fact that the premiums have changed. I actually have a meeting on Tuesday with CRIF again, sir, to be able to ensure that our coverage in relation to the upcoming hurricane season is what we would like it to be from a parametric insurance perspective. And I certainly look forward to those discussions there, sir. With respect to the Customs Department, sir, we are intending to do a few things, sir. We are intending to upgrade the Assecutor platform. Cabinet has approved for us to proceed with respect to that engagement, sir. And therefore, some of the monies here are related to the down payment in relation to being able to make that happen. Equally, sir, Customs now resides at the old Port Authority building. You may recall, sir, that it's August of last year. The building was open. It is now called the Soroy Trotman Customs House. And the part of the resource here really related to furniture from Silverline Systems, sir, to be able to equip the office in relation to that. In addition, sir, under the Enterprise Growth Fund, During the course of this year, we were able to provide sums of monies to be able to recapitalize the Agricultural Development Fund of $10 million to EGFL as part of government's continued support to ensure that we can have climate resilience enhanced climate resilience within the agriculture sector, and therefore we provided those monies to be able to achieve said objectives. And so with those few words, I beg to move that Head 34 stand part.
The question is that Head 34 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 35, sir. Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs in the sum of $3,555,525.
Mr. Chairman, the sums of monies here relate to 4 departments: General Management, Welfare Department, as well as the Bureau of Social Planning and Research, as well as the Resilience and Reintegration Unit. Some of the first 2 heads, sub-programs, sir, relates to the payment of national insurance contributions. These monies were advanced in the course of the year to ensure that all of the statutory obligations were met within the Welfare Department as well as the General Management and Coordination Services. As you are also aware, sir, under the Bureau of Social Planning, the ministry is also engaging in the survey of country assessments for living conditions, and therefore those resources with respect to the remuneration for the enumerators are what those specific sums are for. In addition, sir, as you heard the minister speak to in the previous debate, the fact that the government has been able to do more and do it in a faster time frame with respect to the resilience and the reintegration unit. We've provided resources to make sure that when something happens, that as far as at least financially possible, but obviously they are also still faced with accommodation constraints as it is at the moment. We've tried as far as possible to ensure that there are no financial issues in relation to allowing people to be able to be resettled once there's a specific particular intervention. So those sums were provided to ensure that the unit could provide the services for persons who needed them most quickly. And therefore, sir, with those few words, I beg to move that Head 35 stand part.
Question is that Head 35 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 82, sir. Ministry of Environment and National Beautification in the sum of $43,389,014.
Mr. Chair, the sum is appropriated for the following. 1, the sum of $1,020,180 for the payment of fees to the independent contractors who work to clean the seaweed off our beaches for the period October and November of last year, and for February and March this year. The sum of $17,443,503 is basically to provide support not only for our business interruption benefit disbursement that was paid to our fisher folk, but of course to pay for outstanding invoices incurred when we had the hurricane in terms of the repair and our recovery efforts. Also includes the purchase of our molds for the new boats and for the repairs undertaken to our breakwater in our Bridgetown Fisheries Complex. The sum of $146,089 is required to provide for the cleanup of the marina and the boatyard, which happened immediately after Hurricane Beryl, and of course the repairs, minor repairs to the Berenda Cox and Paynes Bay market. The sum of $24,157,422 is required to facilitate the payment of additional garbage trucks, and I'm sure that persons in earshot would have seen those garbage trucks operating on roads as we look to improve our garbage collection. The sum of $539,461 provides for the payment of fees to workers, and you are aware that we started the Gullies project, and this is for the workers who work for the period October and November 2024 and February and March of this year. The sum of $800,000 is required to support the Inter-American Development Bank funded project entitled Strengthening Institutional and Technical Capacity for Barbados to meet the transparency requirements of the Paris Agreement, which we all know is responsible to ensure that we keep on track in terms of our 1.5 mantra to stay alive. So I beg that Head 82 stand par.
Question is that Head 82 stand par. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 83, sir. Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security in the sum of $26,567,591.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This money is voted to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security. One, we are seeking to continue to support agriculture by way of making sure that we keep the wells across the agricultural fields clean through our aquifer recharge program, and at the same time prevent the washaway of hedgerows onto the streets, and therefore the cuscus grass program, which is all part of an ECARP program that also helps to control coverage in this country. The sum of $2 million goes to support that program. Mr. Chairman, sir, we also continue to carry the cost of the storage tanks. This albatross is still around our necks, and the sum of $2.1 million is set aside for paying for those tanks. Those tanks, you do know, Mr. Chairman, were set up in the Bridgetown port during the last administration, and therefore we continue to carry the cost for them. And then, Mr. Chairman, the cost of the sugar harvest, which started on Tuesday of this week, we did commit that we will continue to give the sugar industry a climate mitigation subsidy and support for haulage, and indeed support for good husbandry on the farms. And therefore, the remainder of this supplementary goes towards supporting the sugar industry and making sure that we continue to produce enough molasses for our rum industry and sugar for domestic consumption. So, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 83 do stand par.
The question is that Head 83 stand par. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 86, sir. Ministry of Health and Wellness in the sum of $57,445,310.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, sir. The sums being requested under Head 86 relate to a number of areas and sub-programs. The first one relates to the payment of our contingent. Yes, it is on. Thank you. The first relates to the payment of our contingent of Ghanaian nurses who are here on the ground helping us in our delivery of healthcare services in the amount of $2.9 million. We also have, under the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, an arrangement and a loan with the European Investment Bank that is to help us with 4 capital projects in the amount of $17.2 million. We also have, under this particular supplementary, and a disbursement being made to the emergency ambulance service in the amount of $65,000, and this relates to costs associated with the hosting of the World Cup, Cricket World Cup last year, 2024, the men's T20. We have under the psychiatric hospital, we have additional salaries that are being paid and voted for that are to cover the increased costs related to the travel of officers in the amount of $287,864. We are at this point in time requesting a supplementary for pharmaceutical program under our drug service in the amount of $3 million as reimbursement to private pharmacies. And lastly, under the environmental health services, we're requesting a supplementary of $113,000 approximately, once again, to cover costs associated with equipment and supplies associated with the T20 Cricket World Cup competition that was hosted. Even as I move this supplementary, I would like to highlight the tremendous contribution that our Ghanaian nurses are making to the delivery of healthcare across our various institutions, not only within the Ministry of Health proper, but in particular at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I would like to, at this point in time, congratulate and join in the celebration of the 68th Independence Anniversary celebrations that are taking place right now in Ghana. And of course, we want to extend our appreciation to the government and people of Ghana, and of course the nurses who have come here happily and are lending their expertise, their skills, their knowledge, and experience to help us as a nation to deliver excellent healthcare service to our people. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 86 stand part.
The question is that Head 86 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Head 87, sir. Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training in the sum of $18,525,396.
Mr. Chairman, the sums of monies being appropriated here relate to a few sub-programs. As you know, sir, during the course of the year, the government enhanced the security at some of the schools, and as well as undertook some renovations at the Riverview building with the ministry headquarters. In addition, sir, the change management unit, as you know, sir, we're deep into education reform, and the change management unit was appropriately resourced during the course of this year, not just with respect to staffing, but certainly with respect to the programming that is intended to be delivered to assure that we can have effective transition from the current system into what we want it to be moving forward. We also had, sir, through Erdiston, we've had some teacher training as part of the education reform with Columbia University in order, sir, to make sure that we have the right approaches with respect to the diverse element in relation to learning capabilities, and then obviously ensuring that those capabilities can be matched with the methodologies that suit those. And the final parts, a couple more parts, sir. We also had as part of the reform exercise, we've undertaken to ensure that we can have, in a real sense, a redesign of some of our facilities, because as you would appreciate, sir, as we were building our education plants 40, 50, 60 years ago, sir, it was really at a very different time, a different purpose. The layout of facilities are pretty much modular and pretty almost Victorian in a real sense, sir, and to the extent that we've had the modern school design infrastructure competition, which was intended to ensure that we have modern concepts for not just how and what we build, but to ensure then that the classroom layouts, as well as lighting, air quality, and the like, sir, in relation to ensuring that you create, as far as possible, environments that are genuinely, sir, conducive for learning, and therefore audits in relation to what was happening in the schools, part of the resources that were utilized under this particular sub-program, primary education, the domestic program, and payments of utilities, as you know, sir, as with everything, as we have seen the government provide relief for Barbadians in relation to residential homes, in relation to utilities, the government at its various primary schools have had to have seen increase in relation to the consumption of electricity and like. So within the nursing and primary section, there's an increased allocation there with respect to utilities. And then equally, sir, emergency use equipment for the school meals department is the last remaining item in relation to ensuring then that in the event that something happens, that we generally will have the capacity for our school meals department to continue, sir, to be able to provide hot meals for persons. So we've been upgrading our machinery and equipment in that respect. And therefore, sir, with those few words, I'd like to move the head 87 stand part.
There's a second.
Question is the head 87 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. We think the ayes have it.
Head 92, Ministry of Energy and Business, in the sum of $3,346,837.
Mr. Chairman, these sums of monies relate to two specific areas. With the respect to the Fair Trading Commission, sir, there was a job and remuneration evaluation exercise completed at the Fair Trading Commission, given that there were some issues structurally in relation to staffing there that perhaps contributed to the delay with respect to the technical decisions that were required within the context of its mandate, as well as compensation for a power systems engineer, sir, to ensure that as we move forward, that the commission would have the necessary technical skills within certainly the electricity sector to be able to properly assess and to make determinations quickly in relation to decisions that they have to make that will give comfort not just to the main utility, but equally, sir, to investors as well as individuals who have an interest within the electricity sector. In addition, sir, the revolving fund with respect to PSVs for being able to access loans for moving away from diesel predominantly to EVs or alternate fuel vehicles. The $3 million to fund that sex was made available during the course of the year, and this resolution is just bringing that transaction to account. And so with those very few words, I beg to move that head 92 stand part.
There's a second.
Question is the head 92 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. We think the ayes have it.
Head 83, Ministry of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, the sum of $25,371,368.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this resolution relates to the sum just quoted of $25,371,368 to assist with private treaty of 3 facilities and to support one other facility, which is the Graham Hall Sanctuary. Following the announcement in 2020 that the St. Ursuline Convent was closing, the government saw it fit as part of its educational reform to acquire this property through private treaty. And some of these funds, Mr. Chairman, would pay towards this acquisition to close it out. In addition, lands at Charleston Park, at the corner of Charleston Avenue and Colonial Road, the property of Life of Barbados, now Sagicor Group, we saw it fit to acquire, again for the purpose of education, 5 acres of land. And again, some of this monies will go towards the purchase of that property. So both the 2 St. Ursulines Convent and the Charleston Park area, the 5 acres at Charleston Park, are for educational purposes. In addition to that, Mr. Chair, the Grady's Grant building at White Park Road, again, through private treaty, we acquired that building for a critical purpose for the Barbados Police Service. And indeed, Mr. Chairman, you know that we, in an effort to address some of the challenges we face, we have to find proper accommodation, fit for purpose accommodation for the police service. And indeed, the Geddes Grant building at White Park Road was seen as one of those facilities that we can utilize, and it is being utilized now by the police service. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we saw it fit to help maintain the Graham Hall Nature Sanctuary, which is 42% of our Ramsar wetlands at Graham Hall. So some of these funds will go towards assisting that project in an effort to ensure that our mangrove, woodland, and wetlands of this country are maintained. And with those few words, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I beg that Head 93 stand par.
The question is that Head 93 stand par. All honorable members in favor, say aye. All members against, say no. You think the ayes have it.
Order 14B, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Transport and Works, to move the passing of a resolution to grant the sum of $14,154,094 from the Consolidated Fund and to place at disposal of the government to supplement the estimates 2024-2025 as shown in supplementary estimates number 3, 2024-25, which form the schedule to the resolution. Head 40, Ministry of Transport and Works, $14,154,094.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This allocation to the Ministry of Transport and Works, specifically to the Transport Board, specifically relates to the shortfall that is required to meet its expenditure for this financial year. I'm sure colleagues are aware that as it stands, we continue obviously to be in a phase of transformation of the entity to the Barbados Mass Transit Authority. As I would have said in the estimates, that transition is in progress, and we intend to obviously meet with the unions very shortly to be able to begin discussions on the transformation process. We would have expected in this financial year as well that we would have had at least the 30 buses on island. The good news, however, is that we are seeing the benefits of that hopefully by May of this year. Because I have word that the buses have actually left China and they're en route to Barbados, and that will significantly ease the pressure on the Transport Board as it relates to the costs, operational costs for the current diesel fleet of buses. That has created a significant burden for the entity, and as such, once the new buses are able to come, we hope that we can lower then the operational costs for operating those buses. So this sum takes into account also the payroll for March, also to ensure that we are able to meet our creditor payments, and also to reduce the overall debt portfolio in relation to the BERT program and to meet our obligations under that. We are also, in respect of the buses, allocating a sum of funds, about close to $1 million, in relation to the infrastructure that is necessary once we receive the new buses, to ensure that those can roll out very quickly into the public transportation system. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I therefore beg to move that head 40 stand part.
The question is that head 40 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman? I beg to move that we do no report to Her Honor the Deputy Speaker the passing of 3 money resolutions in Standing Finance Committee.
The question is that I do no report to Her Honor the Deputy Speaker the passing of 3 money resolutions in committee. In Standing Committee, all honorable members in favor, say aye. All members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Honorable members? Honorable members? I was just waiting for silence. You know, they heard me. Honorable members, the chairman of committee has reported to me the passing of 3 money resolutions in committee. Member?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that Resolution 1 be read the first time.
The question is...
Sorry, my apologies. I beg to move that Resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be read the first time.
The question is that resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be read at the same time. Honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that Resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be read a second time.
The question is that resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be read the second time. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that Resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be agreed to.
The question is that resolutions 1, 2, and 3 be agreed to. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, with that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I therefore beg to move the suspension of the House until Monday, the 10th of March at 3 p.m. At that time, we will consider the presentation of the budget debate. 3 p.m. on the 10th of March.
The question... The question is that I do now suspend this honorable chamber until Monday, the 10th of March at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This Honorable Chamber is suspended until Monday, the 10th of March at 3 p.m.